Chapter 481. The Young Sect Master's Punishment. There were 8 kinds of 7th grade fire seeds, from the 5-element sect, the Zhanxian sect and the Pill Cauldron sect, plus the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect. If you add the 3 from the Greatest Heaven sect, with the pure Yang true fire Yang Chen inherited from the ancestor of the pure Yang palace, Yang Chen now has 12 kinds of 7th grade fire seeds in his hands. In his previous life, Yang Chen had only succeeded in getting the 5th grade True Sun Fire, and he had already become a Great Principle Golden Immortal. He has so many advanced fire seeds in this life, if the legendary flame the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire was really successful, Yang Chen would not even dare to imagine the height he would reach. What kind of power his own Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire would have in the future. The 12 kinds of 7th grade fire seeds were obtained, which also meant that the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire had once again taken a solid step in reaching the small accomplishment in the mortal world. Similarly, this was also the biggest deal Yang Chen has made in recent years. It's not that no one has ever asked about the heaven-seizing pill, but compared to the questioning inner heart pill, it was a bit worthless to buy a combination of more than 1,000 small pills at such a large price. Not every sect was like the Greatest Heaven sect, and not every daching stage master could afford this price. Compared to purchasing the pill recipe, it was much cheaper to go to Yang Chen to ask for a pill. Regardless of whether it was the questioning inner heart pill or the heaven-seizing pill, Yang Chen makes it in one refining, and there would be no scary price tag like the 7th grade fire seed. And what most people ask for was nothing more than a pill, and it was not worth having a pill recipe. After the pill recipes were sold, for the time being, many people also gave up tracking Yang Chen. What did they pursue Yang Chen for? Isn't it these pill recipes? Now so many sects have the pill recipes, which could be obtained by various methods, so there was no need to use the most extreme kind. Maybe they still have to ask Yang Chen to get the pill, and they would be able to see each other in the future. From the attitude of the major sects, Yang Chen guessed that the 4 major sects should have known the changes in the immortal world. In this way, the Greatest Heaven sect dominates, other sects also have the possibility of uniting to deal with the enemy. Anyway, to Yang Chen, this was good news. Yang Chen finally found time for the changes in the heavenly court and talked to the palace master and a few core elders in secret. Everyone didn't doubt where he got the news from. Anyway, the last time the Greatest Heaven sect array exploded and suffered heavy losses, everyone knew the source of the news, and it seemed that there was no need to explain. This news was mixed for the pure Yang palace. On the bad side, since the Greatest Heaven sect wanted to achieve hegemony like the Profound Heaven sect in the mortal world. Naturally, the pure Yang palace and the other sects would be crazily suppressed. The good thing was that, because of this, the Greatest Heaven sect would face the pressure of everyone who united to resist them. Based on the current cooperative relationship between the pure Yang palace and the Blue Cloud sect and Green Jade Immortal Island, the pure Yang palace would not be the first target of the Greatest Heaven sect for the time being. For the Greatest Heaven sect, the other 4 sects were their true competitors. Specific matters would be dealt with by the palace master and the elders. In any case, it was the only way to increase their own strength. There was no harm in any situation. Dear Yang Chen was happily selling the pill recipe, but the Greatest Heaven sect over there began to investigate why Yang Chen was selling the pill recipe. If it was only in the hands of their own sect, that was okay, but if it was with all the sects and masters, that was a different concept, and the Greatest Heaven sect had to figure it out anyway. Soon, the senior officials of the Greatest Heaven sect received the news. Someone sold a compass that could locate Yang Chen on the black market and they got a sample of the compass. As soon as they saw this compass, the sect master and several high-level officials immediately realized that this was the handiwork of a certain elder. After discovering this, the core elders of the Greatest Heaven sect were furious. Besides Hu Qianyi, there are people who can't wait to fight Yang Chen. The idea was that they can't fight Yang Chen now, but that they can't fight now, at least until Li Liheng was completely cured, they must not act rashly. Yang Chen said that if he could be cured in 50 years, he would be cured. What if he lied? Could it be that after Hu Qianyi's matter, they still expect Yang Chen to swear by his heart demon when he was helping them? The elder who made the compass was immediately summoned in front of a group of high-level officials and asked severely. The refining elder himself also felt very wronged. This was requested by the young sect master Li Liheng to be refined, and after the refining, it was handed over to the young sect master. He just followed orders and executed it. Hearing it was Li Liheng's request, sect master Li suddenly felt annoyed. The sect targeted Yang Chen because Yang Chen's existence threatened the sect's dominance and certain advantages, and his existence would affect other competitors and cause inconvenience to the Greatest Heaven sect. It was purely out of the consideration of the sect. Except that Li Liheng's methods were based on personal grievances at the beginning, the other actions were not due to personal grievances with Yang Chen. Even the greatest heaven sect, known as the number 1 Tao sect, has strict requirements on the behavior of its disciples. Hu Qianyi did not do things authentically, and among them everyone feels that he would be avenged. What was the difference between Li Lihing's behavior and Hu Qianyi now? Could it be that the young master of the dignified greatest heaven sect turned out to be a villain who didn't know what was good or what was wrong and who would take revenge for grace? If this trend continues, Li Lihing would be able to deal with Yang Chen, who healed his injuries today, and tomorrow, he might change hands to deal with the greatest heaven sect. When Sect Master Li appeared in front of Li Lihing was enjoying Yang Lan's service. There was wine in hand, the beauty was on the side, he felt like a divine immortal. Suddenly seeing Sect Master Li Lihing was so scared that he knocked over the table in front of him and then hurriedly got up from the couch to bow to the Sect Master. Sect Master Li just glanced left and right, snorted coldly and yelled, "Get out of here." The servants around didn't even make a sound, bowed their heads and quickly retreated. Yang Lan, who was half untied, also hurriedly got up, bowed and moved behind the sect master and then quickly fled the house. Bang, a compass was thrown directly in front of Li Lihing and after rolling twice on the ground, it fell right beside Li Lihing. What's this about? Sect Master Li pressed the anger in his heart and asked Li Lihing. If it were not for Li Lihing's current responsibility for the rise and fall of the sect, Sect Master Li would want to kill him with a single palm. This is what this disciple did. Li Lihing just took a look and immediately replied without denying it at all. Forget that you are a little responsible. Sect Master Li snorted and then asked, why did you do this? That Yang Chen relied on his status as a 5th grade alchemy master to blackmail the sect many times and this disciple couldn't tolerate it. Li Lihing replied, while carefully raising his eyes to look at the angry Sect Master Li. Li Lihing's small movements, Sect Master Li felt it very clearly. However, Li Lihing's words somewhat touched the heart of Sect Master Li, so his attitude was slightly softened and he was no longer so angry. This is the reason why you were ungrateful and you paid back his kindness with enmity. Although Sect Master Li's semantics was still very strict, his tone had been relaxed. This disciple just wanted to teach him a lesson. Although Li Lihing was not very smart, he still had a unique talent in catering to the sect master and he doesn't distinguish between them. He just said everything truthfully. Stupid. When he thought that the pill recipe for the questioning inner heart pill was no longer owned by his sect and Yang Chen alone, Sect Master Li suddenly felt a fire in his heart and couldn't help cursing, the trouble with your spiritual awareness, Yang Chen is required to help with his pills. Now that he is offended, will he help out in the future? Hasn't he already given us enough spirit congealing pills and I will be healed after the pills? Li Lihing was shocked. If the troubles of his spiritual awareness can't be solved, wouldn't everything he has now been wiped out and he would be completely beaten back to his original status? After enjoying for so many days, to let him return to his life before, Li Lihing was unwilling. Sect Master Li's reminder made him suddenly aware of that important issue. What if Yang Chen lied? What if he doesn't recover when the time was up? Thinking of this, Li Lihing's cold sweat was gurgling and the situation in his mind that he was holding the spirit congealing pill but was asked to leave by the elders of the medicinal hall came up in his mind. Then, it was Yang's eye knocking on the side to induce him to trouble Yang Chen. It's Yang's eye persuaded me to do this, saying it was to trouble Yang Chen and teach him a lesson. At this time, Li Lihing's anger was also provoked and the perpetrator was immediately discovered. Yang's eye. The impression of this person flashed in the head of Sect Master Li. It seems that Yang's eye just went to the Pure Yang Palace and reported that Yang Chen refused to join the Greatest Heaven sect. Then the Greatest Heaven sect began to target Yang Chen. Could it be that this guy had been the root of the trouble? It turned out to be him. Sect Master Li glanced at Li Lihing. From the beginning of coming in contact with Li Lihing, he knew that he was not a very assertive person. It was normal for him to be bewitched by words, he can't say that he could only deal with this Yang's eye. Yang's eye violated the rules of the sect to confuse the young sect master, send him to the law enforcement hall, and impose a capital punishment on him to prevent others from following his example. When dealing with a small disciple, the sect master Li gave the order without even considering any gains or losses. Of course Yang's eye was waiting outside. The sect master just told them to get out of the house, but didn't let them leave. Hearing the sect master's angry shout in the room, Yang's eye suddenly felt like 5 thunders had crushed into him and his whole body softened. Yang Lan, who was not far away, was also frightened. The sect master's words were the golden rule in the Greatest Heaven sect, no one could go against it. Wait. At the critical moment, Li Lihing suddenly said, seemingly timid, but he still said his own words, Sect Master, Yang's eye is at fault, but this disciple is also at fault. You might as well keep him alive, this disciple is willing to be punished. After coming in contact with Yang's eye for a long time, Li Lihing also gained some enlightenment. If he didn't save Yang Zai's life at this time, who else would follow him in the future? Who would dare to follow him? The moment Li Lihing spoke, Sectmaster Li also understood what Li Lihing meant. This was Li Lihing deliberately establishing his own prestige. As the future Sectmaster, this was also a huge improvement, at least much better than before. Compared with Li Lihing's future, Yang Zai's life and death was simply a trivial matter. However, the Sectmaster's words cannot be taken back casually. Sectmaster Li just stared at Li Lihing with a cold face and then asked after a long time. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, Sectmaster." The pressure brought by Sectmaster Li to Li Lihing was not small, but Li Lihing obviously intended to gamble here. He gritted his teeth and replied with confidence. "In this case, Yang Zai's death penalty is forgiven, but his sins are hard to forgive. He will go into the cold deep pool to retreat for 2 years in order to pay for his sins." Sectmaster Li decided to give Li Lihing this opportunity. At least he was very satisfied with his performance just now. "As for you, since you have done something wrong, you must accept punishment." Looking at Li Lihing, Sectmaster Li announced his punishment: go to the cold deep pool to retreat for half a year. During these half a year, think about what you did wrong. "Yes, Sectmaster." Li Lihing hurriedly agreed. Yang Zai and Yang Lan, who were outside, as if cramped, their bodies completely softened. But this time it was not loss of hope, but the kind of rejoicing and fear of escaping. Retreating in the cold deep pool, this was a very severe punishment in the greatest heaven sect. The cold deep pool was cold all year round, even a bit more frozen than the Arctic ice sheet, but this was not the most severe aspect. In the cold pool, a cold wave of lunar cold would be emitted every night, lasting for 3 hours. Even Yuning stage ancestors couldn't resist this cold wave. Li Lihing was having a Jitan stage cultivation base, and Yang Zai had just reached the Jitan stage, with the help of Yang Lan. It was almost impossible for the two of them to resist this cold wave. At least during this punishment period, they didn't have to want to get better for a day. Yang Zai was very grateful to the young Sectmaster for his life-saving grace, but in the same way, he gritted her teeth for this Yang Chen, who has been throughout the entire incident. Unexpectedly, it was only just after causing some trouble for Yang Chen that his own sect started to punish himself. How could this unequal treatment convince him? After this incident, the greatest heaven sect didn't pursue Yang Chen's sale of the pill recipes, and of course, there was no reason to pursue it. However, every time Li Lihing cultivates, there must be a core elder or the sect master by his side, always waiting for him to get in contact with that senior. When Yang Chen had dealt with the pill recipes affairs and received the fire seeds that he deserved, Li Lihing finally finished his severe punishment, and the first thing he did after leaving, he contacted the spiritual world senior. Li Lihing immediately followed the instructions of the sect master and crushed a small jade tablet that he had been holding in his hand. "Your cultivation is unstable, spiritual awareness is too bad, you can only communicate once a year, you have not made any improvement." The senior seems to be very dissatisfied with Li Lihing, especially about being able to communicate once a year. Li Lihing didn't know what to do, but a voice suddenly came from next to him. Asked the senior if there is a way to completely heal your spiritual awareness. The voice was very familiar, it was the sect master Li who had been paying attention to Li Lihing. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 482. Solving One Own Problem. Hearing the tips from the sect master, Li Lihing was delighted in his heart and scolded himself for forgetting such a crucial question. As long as his own troubles could be resolved, the greatest heaven sect would no longer have any fears and do their best to support him. Therefore, Li Lihing immediately communicated this issue with the senior in the spiritual world. "Is there something wrong with your spiritual awareness?" The senior in the spiritual world didn't seem to notice Li Lihing's problem at all. He seemed to react when Li Lihing mentioned it. "What kind of problem do you have, tell me about it." Li Lihing immediately described his frequent fainting situation to the other party. Afterwards, hopefully waiting for the senior's answer. "The trouble in the spiritual awareness is not so troublesome." A word from the predecessor in the spiritual world made Li Lihing overjoyed immediately. He did not dare to interrupt, just waiting for the guidance of the predecessor. "As long as you take a spirit refining pill, all your problems would be solved." If you say which sentence makes Li Lihing the most happy, it was undoubtedly this sentence. "Don't be a distracted kid, write down this pill recipe and let the masters in the medicinal hall refine it for you." Next, there was a series of medicinal materials and techniques given to him. It's about Li Lihing himself, how could Li Lihing not care? He dared not leave a word, so he remembered everything clearly. Yang Chen's lessons for the past were in front of him, and Li Lihing, after remembering it firmly, asked for some advice. "Senior, can this refining pill be made by ordinary alchemists?" "Of course." The senior in the spiritual world said without hesitation. "Just find a random 6th grade alchemist and it will take less than half a year to refine it." When these words came out, Li Lihing almost fell to the ground with a sway, a random sixth grade alchemist. A fifth grade alchemy master had taken advantage of them on countless occasions. Oh, I forgot that there is no sixth grade alchemist in the mortal world. After Li Lihing reminded him carefully, the spiritual world senior finally remembered this. In the exchange of spiritual awareness, Li Lihing seemed to hear this senior hit his forehead with his hand. Then let's change it to the spirit congealing pill, but it will take longer, it will take decades. The predecessor immediately gave him another solution. If you have this fainting problem, your current situation is somewhat similar to taking a spirit congealing pill. The communication between the two of them now showed signs that the communication between the spiritual awareness was about to be broken, and the news that was being passed was also somewhat blurred. Li Lihing already felt a bit of dizziness, his mind was shaking. If there is a spirit congealing pill, take 3 immediately. The seniors of the spiritual world also noticed that it was not good, they had only talked about a bunch of nonsense, which was a waste, and immediately pointed out. Of course, Li Lihing didn't dare to question him. He hurriedly took out the spirit congealing pills from his Qianqin bag, and after taking 3 of them, there was a moment of relaxation in his sea of consciousness, and the connection with the predecessor seemed clearer. Since you can refine the spirit congealing pill, let's use the concentrating pill for a few more years. The senior in the spiritual world pointed out this spirit congealing pill is much simpler than the spirit refining pill, someone should be able to refine it. Li Lihing had only a wry smile at what the senior said. It was impossible for him to complain to his predecessor that the people in his own medicine hall have obtained the pill recipe for decades and have not even refined half of the pill, right? However, Li Lihing's emotional change was immediately noticed by the senior in the spiritual world, and he immediately asked why. Li Lihing couldn't hide it, he could only tell the reason. It shouldn't be. The spiritual world senior said in confusion, did the pill recipe make a mistake? Li Lihing didn't know exactly what the pill recipe of the spirit congealing pill was, but this did not prevent the senior from telling him the pill recipe and let him verify it with the sect master and others. You only need to find 1 or 2 alchemists who have a powerful spiritual awareness and are capable of diverting their attention. You don't need a 5th grade alchemist, as long as a 4th grade alchemist can refine it. The senior said with confidence, look again. Senior, this junior hasn't asked senior's name in a hurry, so please tell me. After Li Lihing remembered the pill recipe of the spirit congealing pill, he remembered that he had always addressed the senior without knowing the other's name, so he hurried to consult. Old man Liu Fengzi. Yang Chen remembered clearly that Liu Fengzi was a special fellow in the Profound Heaven sect. As an elder of the Profound Heaven sect in the spiritual world, he spent most of his time in retreat and cultivation, and he was not known by many. But this guy's identity, even if there was any reaction in the spiritual world, it would not be found for a while. Besides, how could this news reach the spiritual world except for someone from the greatest heaven sect ascending? Even if they get to the spiritual world, what if they know it? Could it be that they would descend into the lower realm to warn them? After using it a few more times, the mortal's greatest heaven sect would no longer be able to activate the welcoming formation. This was Yang Chen's series of plans. He really doesn't know what kind of mood the old Profound Heaven sect in the spiritual world would feel if they knew that the mortal world's greatest heaven sect was being played to death by him. Is the current sect master Li Tianqing? Liu Fengzi directly passed a question. Li Lihing knew the name of sect master Li and hurriedly answered. His cultivation level should be stuck in the late Yuanying stage and it hasn't been improved for a long time, right? Liu Fengzi seemed to remember something in general and asked his cultivation level was a little reluctant to improve back then and it should have accumulated to a bottleneck now. Tell him that hundreds of years ago, a younger generation junior who had ascended said that if he wanted to improve, he should find a genius with full value of the water attribute to be a cauldron and he may have room for improvement. Liu Fengzi didn't mind pointing out otherwise, he can only stop here. The instruction to Li Tianqing was of course from the memory of Yang Chen's previous life. Li Tianqing's realm defect was also one of the reasons why Gao Yu had to become his cauldron. Later, the other party found Gao Yu but failed to get her and directly forcibly captured a genius female cultivator from a small sect and his realm rose in one fell swoop. Even if Yang Chen didn't point the other party would know in the future, but speaking it out now could increase his position in the greatest heaven sect heart and convince the other party. Li Lihing didn't doubt it and remembered this in his heart. Afterwards, it was basically Yang Chen asking and Li Lihing answering. After a while, the signs of spiritual awareness connection instability appeared again. This time, Senior Liu Fengzi didn't let Li Lihing take the spirit congealing pills again, but asked him to prepare more spirit congealing pills. In the future, during the spiritual awareness connection, the more the spirit congealing pills, the longer the connection time. This time, it was only a preliminary exchange. When Li Lihing's cultivation base was improved, this exchange would become more frequent. After successfully communicating with the other party, Li Lihing finally fainted again. One couldn't do anything about it, a small Zhanxian stage junior had to face the coercion of the spiritual awareness of a spiritual world senior. It was already very impressive to be able to withstand it until now. After waking up, Li Lihing didn't wait for Sectmaster Li to ask questions. In front of the Sectmaster and the anxious core elders, like a bamboo tube pouring beans, he talked about the things he had communicated with Senior Liu Fengzi from beginning to end, not one word was hidden. The pill recipe of the spirit refining pill and the pill recipe of the spirit congealing pill were written out and handed over to the sect master. Liu Fengzi even told Li Tianqing how to break through the bottleneck of his cultivation base. This was an extraordinary event. The spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method was finally able to communicate with the predecessors of the spiritual world. For the greatest heaven sect, it was no less than obtaining hundreds of Daching stage masters out of thin air. Among other things, the pill recipe of the spirit congealing pill was exactly the same as the one he had obtained from Yang Chen. Since a group of masters in the medicinal hall had already determined that this pill recipe of the spirit congealing pill was real, the actions of the senior in the spiritual world were very real. Moreover, the key to the alchemy that Senior Liu Fengzi said was right, that was, their attention must be diverted and used, it's just that this was the most troublesome aspect. After removing this, not to mention a fourth-grade alchemist, even a third-grade alchemist could refine it. Everyone here has heard of Liu Fengzi's name. He was a senior who ascended more than 2,000 years ago. It was a pity that no one, including those elders, has ever communicated with Liu Fengzi. Before they joined the sect, Liu Fengzi had already ascended, but it was recorded in the ancient books of the sect. The pill recipe for the spirit refining pill was treated as a treasure by everyone. Although there was no way to refine it temporarily, once an alchemy master could be cultivated, this would be a treasure in the future. As for the shortcomings of Li Tianqing's cultivation, Liu Fengzi unceremoniously told Li Lihing. Although Li Tianqing blushed when he heard it, there was more excitement in his heart. Once there was a solution to the problem that has troubled him for many years, how could it not make him happy? So far, no one has doubted the authenticity of the spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method. The previous series of events have already shown that this was not Li Lihing playing a trick, but he really contacted the senior in the spiritual world. The final question was still focused on the spirit congealing pill, Li Lihing's spiritual awareness problem. It was necessary to take the spirit congealing pills for a long time, and with the spirit congealing pills, it could also make Li Lihing's time to connect with Senior Liu Fengzi's spiritual awareness longer, which was irreplaceable for the greatest heaven sect. The spirit congealing pill was so important, but all the core elders were dumbfounded. In the greatest heaven sect's medicinal hall, no one has been able to refine even a single spirit congealing pill so far, and everything was provided by Yang Chen. If they wanted more spirit congealing pills, they could only ask Yang Chen for help. And not long ago, because of the predecessor Liu Fengzi, Li Lihing also took 3 more spirit congealing pills, and he would probably take it like this in the future. Thus, the spirit congealing pills that Li Lihing needed to be cured were no longer enough. How would they manage it? This was the question before the core elders of the greatest heaven sect. It was such a seemingly simple but extremely tangled trouble. This guy Yang Chen, everyone in the room wanted to smash him into pieces. But the reality was that if they couldn't find another alchemist who could refine the spirit congealing pills in a short time, they were afraid that even if they hate Yang Chen again, they could only find ways to keep Yang Chen and please Yang Chen. All eyes were focused on Mao Kai, the head of the Foreign Affairs Hall. All-Master Mao Kai has been fortunate enough to join the ranks of these core elders because of his previous negotiations with Yang Chen. However, seeing everyone's eyes, he still couldn't help but shiver. Even Yuning stage masters seemed to be unable to withstand this pressure. I made an oath that I will never go to Yang Chen again. Hallmaster Mao waved his hand directly before everyone could speak. How could he go to Yang Chen again? It would be better to go to the deep cold pool to retreat. Is it the Heart Demon's oath? Sect Mystery's gaze followed Mao Kai's movements, and he asked calmly. Hallmaster Mao immediately became a little dejected. Of course he would not take this kind of thing to swear to a heart demon, but doesn't the sect master still understand? If it wasn't the heart demon's oath, he would have to look for it when it was time to look for Yang Chen. I think, let's try our best to train the alchemist of the sect. Mao Kai couldn't help coughing and said anyway, if you continue at this speed, it will take at least 20 or 30 years for the spirit congealing pills to finish. If there is no alternative, I can only find Yang Chen. No matter what, Mao Kai doesn't want to face Yang Chen now. The inability to take the initiative to contact again and again made him very reluctant to negotiate with this guy who held their fate. As a last resort, he absolutely didn't want to see Yang Chen. He would drag it now, if it doesn't work, he would go. Regarding Mao Kai's remarks, everyone was also not commenting on it and it was considered that they agreed to this plan temporarily. However, there was still one problem that has not been resolved, it was the problem that Li Liheng left behind. Many compasses that could locate Yang Chen's position were still missing. This was a very dangerous thing for Yang Chen. It was not known how many people wanted to make trouble for Yang Chen, but they couldn't find Yang Chen's whereabouts. With these compasses, they could definitely cause great trouble for Yang Chen. But now if something happened to Yang Chen, it meant that the Greatest Heaven sect was also in big trouble. In order to get the spirit congealing pills for the spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method and for the future of the Greatest Heaven sect, it was necessary to help Yang Chen to clear these troubles. Now they were still wiping Li Liheng's ass. He had done the deeds before and now the whole Greatest Heaven sect had to clean up after him. The eyes of a group of people staring at Li Liheng were very unkind. "It's not me," Yang Zai said, "we should teach Yang Chen a lesson and didn't want him to die." Li Liheng hurriedly distinguished again. After experiencing the cold deep pool for half a year, he never wanted to experience it again. He hurriedly pushed Yang Zai out and all the responsibility was on Yang Zai. Yang Zai will spend 5 more years in the deep cold pool to retreat. The sect master Li relentlessly increased the punishment. Before, Li Liheng was just punished for doing wrong, there was no follow-up trouble. Now it was necessary to deal with the aftermath, the responsibility was different and the punishment was naturally different. Yang Zai, who was still in the deep cold pool, of course didn't know that his sentence had been increased to another 5 years. He was still counting the days with hardships day by day and trembling with the utterly cold and irresistible cold waves. Recover all the compasses that were sold out. Don't think about the ones that fell into the hands of the 5 major sects and take them back from the buyers. Sect Master Li quickly ordered if they refused to hand it over, kill them. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 483. Formation Cultivation. Yang Chen didn't know what was going on, but he knew that the Greatest Heaven sect would definitely try to clear the obstacles for him. The spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method was one of the strengths of the Greatest Heaven sect, but it was also their most fatal weakness. The only downside was that in order to maintain the scam of the spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method, it was necessary to keep the imprint of Li Liheng's spiritual awareness, which also makes it possible for the people of the Greatest Heaven sect to track his whereabouts at any time. However, Yang Chen was not worried that the Greatest Heaven sect would attack him right away, and he was not worried about the real spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method. Even if Li Liheng has outstanding qualifications, he only has a chance to succeed in his cultivation. If the spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method could be cultivated so easily, the Greatest Heaven sect would have ruled the mortal world a long time ago, so why wait till now? Moreover, even if Li Liheng tried hard to cultivate, it was impossible. After taking the spirit congealing pills, his spiritual awareness was condensed in a non-active situation. Li Liheng's spiritual awareness cultivation base could only reach the PQing stage, and it was impossible to go further if he didn't take a medicinal pill from the spiritual world. Wanting to rely on this incomplete spiritual awareness to cultivate the real spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method, Yang Chen would rather believe that the Greatest Heaven sect would find another 5th-grade alchemist. Because of buying the pill recipes, Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu met with Yang Chen again. The 4 ladies were all in the Pure Yang Palace, so Yang Chen took them to explore the secret plane of the Greatest Heaven sect. The ancient key of the Greatest Heaven sect that was destroyed by Yang Chen's design was indeed a real secret plane. When it was given to Yang Chen for interpretation, Yang Chen had already firmly grasped the information about this secret plane. At that time, Yang Chen was asked by the people of the Greatest Heaven sect to make a heart demon oath that he would never reveal the secrets of this secret plane. Yang Chen did a very good job of this and he has never mentioned it to outsiders. Even now, when he was about to set off, he didn't say a word to his 4 wives, only that he would let the 4 women go out for a walk with him. As for leaking the information, Yang Chen would never talk to the outside world about this. This time Yang Chen had other plans besides looking for the secret plane. Gao Yu's dragon horn flying sword was about to be refined and Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu's life source flying sword embryo was also about to be built. All the materials were nourished by Dragon Kai, so it was most suitable to refine them in the Dragon Palace. After finding the secret plane, he would enter the Dragon Palace on the spot, Yang Chen would make the sword embryo, and Gao Yu would begin to refine the dragon horn flying S-word. After all these tasks were completed, the 5 people could set out to experience the demon continent. This predecessor of the Greatest Heaven sect, he didn't know if it was a predecessor from tens of thousands of years ago, the text left by him has become unrecognized by the current disciples due to long-term evolution. Similarly, because of the age, the way of hiding the secret plane at that time was not the same as the present one. If it weren't for the record of that ancient key, even Yang Chen, who had the spiritual awareness thread of the three purities secret art technique, would not be able to find where he stood in the secret plane. The hiding of the ancient secret plane has an unusual shielding effect on spiritual awareness. This was a huge canyon. It was said to be a canyon, but there was no water in it. It was not known how many years ago it had been. The long canyon dug out by the flowing river on the ground was hundreds of feet deep. Standing at the bottom of the canyon, looking up at the line of sky, even if the canyon was wide, it gives people a feeling of being trapped in a slit. Even the river was dried up and the spirit power was dissipating very seriously. The distribution of spirit power in this area was even worse than those of cities in the mundane land. If it were not for the guidance of the ancient key, Yang Chen would never have found it here. None of the four girls asked him why he brought them here. There was now a blind trust in the four women for Yang Chen. Anyway, everyone knew that Yang Chen would never harm them. As for what they were doing here, they don't care at all. The husband sings and the wife succumbs, of course, they follow wherever he goes. In the thousands of miles long canyon, after careful calculation, Yang Chen was finally able to locate the secret plane. One can't do anything about it, the old senior of the greatest heaven sect who left the secret plane, when the secret plane was arranged, there was still a gurgling river. Changes in landforms over the past tens of thousands of years have also affected the determination of precise locations. Even if there were people in the greatest heaven sect who could read and understand those ancient characters, they couldn't find the secret plane. Even Yang Chen relied on the spiritual awareness threads cultivated by the three purities secret art, and he keenly discovered some signs of spirit power flashing in a huge range that was almost offset by hundreds of miles. This kind of spirit power flashing was caused by the secret plane itself, and it takes almost 3 to 5 years to flash once. Yang Chen and the others were lucky that it happened that there was a flashing in the past few days, and they were caught by Yang Chen. Otherwise, Yang Chen could only keep his 4 wives here for 3 or 5 years. Once he finds the location, things would be easier to handle later. In the surprised eyes of the 4 wives, Yang Chen began to condense one by one a secret technique and hit the surrounding ground and the walls of the canyon. None of the 4 women spoke, they were all waiting patiently. Yang Chen would not do useless work. Gongsun Ling and Yang Chen had already experienced this scene once when they were collecting the medicine gourd, so there was a tacit understanding to let the girls not be surprised. Yang Chen has now been promoted to the Yuning stage, and the time for the coagulation technique was much faster than in the Jidan stage. In almost a dozen breaths he could condense one. After condensing a full 49 secret technique and they were distributed in different directions, Yang Chen had completed this step. In fact, on the ancient key, this record was very simple, but there was more than 50 heavenly circulation here, but it must be arranged with spirit power, and it was impossible to complete it while idle. The heavenly circulation was still short of a secret technique, and this secret technique was also the key to activate the formation. After getting ready, Yang Chen called the 4 girls to his side. After letting them hold hands with his own hands together, Yang Chen made the last secret technique and hit it on the most central ground. 50 secret techniques emitted a bright light at the same time, but they were gathered within a radius of less than 100 meters. The light was getting brighter and brighter, and the spirit power fluctuated more and more. At the moment when the spirit power fluctuated to the most severe point, in front of Yang Chen's eyes, a round arched doorway made of white light suddenly appeared. Without thinking about it, Yang Chen took the 4 ladies and stepped into the doorway. As soon as they entered the doorway, the figures of the 5 people disappeared instantly, and then all the light outside dimmed, and the spirit power fluctuations also disappeared without a trace, as if no one had appeared here again. The 5 figures of Yang Chen and his wives suddenly appeared in an empty space. Yang Chen almost didn't hesitate, he summoned the golden bell and used it to envelope himself and the 4 women's shadows. As expected by Yang Chen, as soon as he finished there was a sudden shock wave around them. There were more than a dozen spirit power waves in all directions, attacking the 5 people in the center regardless. Boom, boom, after a series of roars, all the spirit power waves were picked up by the 2 dragon shadows from the golden bell, making a violent sound. As soon as the spirit power wave ended, dozens of sword shadows appeared suddenly, it cut on the golden bell, making a jingle sound. With the golden bell's protection, this level of attack could not hurt Yang Chen's fur at all. At this point, how could the 4 women still not understand that they have entered a secret plane? However, what made them strange was those who made the secret plane and even gave back to the people who entered the secret plane. The more so, the more exciting it was. The densely protected area could only be said to contain more exciting wealth. The ancient keys indicated that after entering the secret plane, they would be attacked by a formation. This formation should be the secret formation of the greatest heaven sect, at least there was no trace of this formation in Yang Chen's memory. If he didn't know the name, he couldn't use normal methods to crack this formation. the only way left was to crack it by force. This formation was even more powerful than the formation in Yang Chen's medicine garden. Even if it was a Yuning stage ancestor, if he was not prepared, they could only fall under this formation. It was a pity that no matter whether it was a spirit power attack or a flying sword attack, encountering the golden bell of Yang Chen, the crazy attack was useless under the protection of the golden bell. Yang Chen guarded the 4 women and walked in a certain direction while being constantly attacked. As long as they left the range of this formation of attacks, they would naturally not be attacked. The idea was good, but it was not so easy to implement. The formation itself has the function of restricting the actions of the people in the formation. Yang Chen wanted to protect the 4 women, so naturally he can't walk recklessly, so the speed of their movement was also very slow. In fact, the best way was to let the 4 women enter Yang Chen's medicine garden, and Yang Chen breaks this formation alone. However, whether it was Yang Chen or the 4 girls, they all wanted to enjoy the process of being together and cultivate some tacit understanding. Them letting one person resist this kind of pressure alone was not what they wanted. Under the protection of Yang Chen, the 4 women even came up with the idea of honing their cultivation in this formation. Regarding this, Yang Chen had no objection. Cultivation was to go through various situations, and this situation was right. Anyway, they could hide in the protection circle of Yang Chen's golden bell, life was worry-free, so the 4 women could also let go. Everyone was not in a hurry, so they just started to cultivate. It must be said that the power of this formation that even Yang Chen has never heard of was far more powerful than he had imagined. Among the 4 girls, Zhanxian had the strongest cultivation base, she could only support herself for a brief moment before she had to retreat to Yang Chen's golden bell. Zhanxian used the flying sword to cut against the opponent's sword formation. The same method of breaking the formation with brute force was also applicable. Perhaps because of the lack of material and grade of the flying sword, she could not last for a long time. When Zhanxian's life source flying sword was successfully refined, perhaps this situation would change. Bao Yu and Sun Qingxu had similar situations, but they persisted for a shorter time. On the contrary, it was Gongsun Ling, who had the mountain river geographical map to protect her body, who was able to do well in the formation and was the most relaxed. Everyone didn't want to give up such a rare opportunity, even Gongsun Ling intentionally or unconsciously reduced the protection of the mountain river geographical map to the lowest level and carefully experienced the reaction under the attack of the formation. There were continuous spirit power attacks and dozens of high-quality flying swords flying around incessantly, as if everyone was besieged by dozens of people. The 4 women had never had this kind of experience before and all of them were excited. They would not hide in Yang Chen's golden bell circle without exhausting themselves. This formation was not a simulated attack, a little carelessness would end up in injury. When exhausted, almost all of the 4 women were stabbed by flying swords. After all, although their own reaction was not slow, coupled with Yang Chen's timely protection, there was no danger. However, minor injuries were unavoidable. Fortunately, everyone has a profound cultivation base, and Yang Chen's medicinal pill was excellent, so these minor injuries were not at all a risk. But Yang Chen was a little bit dumbfounded. He originally came to the secret plane to hunt for treasures, but how did it suddenly become a cultivation field? He also had a way of getting out of the range of this formation, but now he was ordered by the 4 wives to stay in place, providing them with protection so that they could absorb this kind of combat experience when under siege. Soon Yang Chen figured it out. Going to the demon continent was originally to allow them to increase their actual combat training, and the opportunity like this was now a preview before going to the demon continent. Anyway, this kind of cultivation was only good for the 4 women, and Yang Chen only needs to look after them without risking their lives. The progress of the 4 women was rapid, and as they became familiar with this attack method, the 4 women supported themselves for longer and longer. From the beginning, they couldn't even support themselves for half the time for an incense to burn, and now they could withstand the full attack for an hour, which was really a huge improvement. It was estimated that if this kind of full-strength attack didn't consume spirit power too fast, causing the spirit power to run out, the 4 women could hold on for a longer time. On the contrary, Yang Chen's spirit power has been supporting the golden bell's protective circle, making all the women a little surprised. Especially Zhanxian, who originally thought that there would be a limited difference in spirit power with Yang Chen, and now she saw the difference. Of course, it didn't mean that he was hundreds of times stronger than them, but in this situation, he didn't have to fight with all his strength, and he had enough energy to replenish his spirit power. At this point, the purpose of the cultivation has actually been achieved, and it doesn't make much sense to continue. If they wanted their spirit power cultivation base to improve, it was not something that could be improved by fighting. Finally, after a full-fledged battle, the 4 women invariably stopped this cultivation. Regardless of Yang Chen, the golden bell resisted the attack and slowly moved to the periphery of the formation under tremendous pressure. With Yang Chen's river-turning strength, no matter how much resistance it was, Yang Chen only felt a little troublesome here. Once they were out of the range of the formation, all the attacks disappeared. The four girls cheered and began to look carefully at this secret plane. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 484. Secret Plane. The place where everyone was at the beginning, or the place where the formation was introduced into the secret plane, was a huge hall. The hall had a radius of hundreds of meters, and all the stripes on the floor and ceiling were having dense arrays. Yang Chen and the others forcibly left the range of the formation, and the flying swords also became quiet. The patterns distributed on the ceiling seemed to be part of the formation. As early as when the girls were attacking and practicing, Yang Chen had already counted them. The total number of flying swords was over 99. If it weren't for Yang Chen having an extremely powerful protective magic weapon like the Golden Bell, and he wanted to deal with this sword formation, it would not be an easy task to protect all the women from the attack. Perhaps after Yang Chen's Great Yin-Yang 5 Elements flying swords were completed, the Great Yin-Yang 5 Elements flying sword formation could easily block this kind of attack and even destroy the opponent's flying swords. The spirit power wave attack that entered the formation at the beginning was probably to be used by those who entered the formation to break the formation. If it was really a descendant of the greatest heaven sect, he would definitely know how to crack this formation. Unfortunately, Yang Chen and others could only resist. This hall was an exquisite aisle, which was also more suitable for passage. On the opposite side of the passage, that was, at the other end of the formation, there was a large horizontal slit on the wall that extended very long. The passage was very wide, and the 5 people of Yang Chen's family walking side by side were not crowded. However, Yang Chen and the 4 women moved forward cautiously. There was no way they would be disarmed as soon as they entered. Who knows if there was any formation mechanism inside. In short, there was nothing wrong with being careful. There was no danger in walking all the way. Walking through the passage, there was an oval square. This large square was several times larger than the square that they came from, and it was also several times higher. Around the square, there was a circle of rooms. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Yang Chen let the girls stay where they were, and he walked through the square and the door of those rooms. No more attacks appeared. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness didn't find any danger in this area, so he relieved his alert boldly. Thinking about it, this was the secret property left to the younger generation, not a fierce land with many traps. With the formation of the gate, if a dashing stage master came in, they would not be able to escape, so there was really no need to guard against it. Seeing Yang Chen's safety gesture, the girls cheered and rushed to the surrounding rooms. Needless to say, these rooms were the wealth concentration in the secret plane, just waiting to be raided. Yang Chen was not in a hurry, the 4 women were his wives. Whoever gets the things was the same as Yang Chen getting it himself. There was no need to disturb the happiness of his 4 wives at this time. Yang Chen was very certain that most of the 4 girls in this ancient secret plane would not know anything, so in the end, they would definitely come to Yang Chen again for advice. Sure enough, none of the 4 women had the idea of swallowing them alone, they just moved out all the things in each room. "Husband, please come over and see what these things are." Seeing Yang Chen staying in the big square for a long time and waiting for the girls to move the things out, Sun Kingsu was irritated and pouted and began to complain to him. Yang Chen smiled and pulled Sun Kingsu into his arms, and for a while, he twisted Sun Kingsu's little nose, then smiled and said, "Good things won't run away with long legs. I just have to wait, so why should you be in a hurry?" Among the 4 girls, Sun Kingsu was the youngest, and only she could act like this with Yang Chen. Gao Yu was Yang Chen's master, and Gongsun Ling was his senior apprentice. It was almost impossible for the 2 women to do this kind of thing when there were others around. Shy Zhanxian was even more cold, unless she was alone with Yang Chen, otherwise she was always cold. Needless to say, the resources in this secret plane were still very coveted. There were a lot of good things in the first batch the 4 women brought out. There was a pill room, which contains many pills that have been successfully refined. It's a pity that the time has been too long, and the other party doesn't have such a good thing such as the medicinal gourd to store it. Generally, after 10,000 years, these medicinal pills basically had no medicinal effect. Obviously, this secret plane has experienced a longer period of time, and those pills have been completely turned into ashes. On the contrary, there were a lot of jade bottles containing the elixir, simple and elegant, carefully crafted, and looked very good. There was also an alchemy furnace in the alchemy room. The shape was slightly different from the current ones, and it looked like it was made from precious materials. It's just that Yang Chen hasn't paid attention to it yet, but some of the materials in the alchemy furnace were good, and they could be used to smelt into the profound spirit furnace to slightly improve the quality. In addition, there were dozens of jade slips in the pill room and the women couldn't understand the words recorded in the jade slips, so they could only give them to Yang Chen. Yang Chen swept his spiritual awareness through it and immediately said with a smile, good things, ancient pill recipes. Some medicinal pills have been improved, but some have been preserved to this day. Among these jade slips, there were no less than hundreds of pill recipes recorded. Some medicinal pills overlap with some current medicinal pills with slightly different names, and then there were some subtle differences in the amount of certain medicinal ingredients. For Yang Chen, these were only references. There were only a dozen pill recipes that Yang Chen had never seen before and they could be refined to try their effects in the future. The pill room was vacated and another room was cleared out. Surprisingly, this turned out to be a refining room. Now everyone was refining magic weapons using their own different refining methods, but they basically relied on their own spirit power to polish them. This refining room was indeed a bit special and there were even some stove bellows and anvil hammers used by mundane blacksmiths. In the furnace, there was also a sealed true essence gathering formation and a unique 6th-grade golden crow heavenly fire. This kind of fire could smelt most of the materials in the mortal world, it was also the fire that was most suitable for refining magic weapons. Even the bellows was a magic weapon, as long as it was stimulated with spirit power, it could continuously urge the golden crow heavenly fire and it could also control the fire. What made Yang Chen most amazed was that in addition to these, there was a whole set of carefully crafted tools, axe, chisel, etc. all were available. All these tools were made of a very rare type of Tai mixed steel. This kind of Tai hybrid steel was harder than any material that Yang Chen has seen, but it was not tough enough, but it was the best material for making tools. The magic weapon created with this kind of Tai mixed steel tool was totally different from the current refining magic weapon, leaving the aura of the owner in it. If Yang Chen didn't have Xiao Yan, this set of tools would be the best tool to create magic weapons. More importantly, the Tai blended element steel could slightly carve the dragon's horns. Only for this point, this set of things couldn't belong to someone else, no one could use it except Gao Yu. Of course, it's just a slight sculpting, it was impossible to do this kind of thing drastically. But even so, it made it a little less difficult to refine the dragon horn flying sword for Gao Yu, and the success rate increased a lot. Next to the refining room was a warehouse. All kinds of refining materials were piled up in the whole room, stored in different categories. Some wood and stone materials had decayed and weathered after being stored for tens of thousands of years and could not be used at all, only the metallic ones were left. However, many metals were also rusty and they couldn't see the original appearance. After Yang Chen distinguished, many metal materials were recognized. Some of them could actually be used in the refining of the magic weapons of Gao Yu, Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu, and the effect would be better than ordinary auxiliary materials. At this point, their gains began to increase. The rooms for storing materials and medicinal herbs were quite large, each occupying more than half of the rooms on both sides. The remaining rooms had much less storage. However, seeing thousands of jade slips in a certain room, Yang Chen finally showed a smile on his face. Many inheritances from the ancient times, after experiencing continuous development and changes, and some accidental additions, deletions, or accidents, not many have remained until now. These things were enough for Yang Chen to study the original appearance of many things. Including various cultivation methods, formations, etc. Of course, after development and changes, some were developing in a more reasonable and optimized direction, but some were really retrogressive or lost. All the jade slips recorded were ancient characters. Except for Yang Chen, the four women didn't know anything about it and they had to wait for Yang Chen to complete the translation. Yang Chen even found a detailed explanation of the formation at the entrance in the jade slip. After a quick translation, it was handed over to Gongsun and he asked her to figure out how to collect it. The attack power of this formation was still very strong, especially the 99 flying swords, which were also very precious materials, it was worth collecting. After everyone searched and charged similarly, the girls discovered that there were two rooms that couldn't be opened. The rooms were locked by a strange formation, even Gongsun couldn't recognize what kind of formation it was. However, one thing could be judged from it. If these two formations were forcibly opened, they were afraid that the things stored in the room would be completely destroyed. The eyes of the women all looked at Yang Chen. If one of the 5 people could open these two rooms, it would be Yang Chen. Seeing the two strange formations, Yang Chen also had to frown. He really had never seen these two formations before. He could only look for clues carefully from those jade slips. A lot of jade slips have been put away, fortunately. When everyone collected it, they were all sorted out according to the original location, area by area. This gave Yang Chen a chance to find it quickly. There was an area of jade slips that were cultivation methods, and it was estimated that they would not be recorded here. There was an area where the formation was used and there was probably an explanation of the two formations here. Yang Chen looked around but couldn't find the jade slip that recorded those two formations. After thinking about it, he didn't understand why. The four women had collected all the jade slips and Yang Chen just waited in the middle of the square like a big master. Now, Yang Chen also had to go to the room where the jade slips were stored in person to see it again. It was a study room. Except for the jade desk and chair in the center, all the bookshelves were jade bookshelves, which were still well preserved. The girls had just cleaned up the jade slips on the bookshelf but ignored the things on the desk. Yang Chen walked to the desk. There was a complete set of 4 treasures of the study on it. However, the pen, ink and paper had been turned into ashes and only 1 inkstone remained. But there was still a black jade pen holder and the pens in it had become flying ash. These ashes piled a thick layer on the table, burying the entire tabletop underneath. With a wave of his hand, all the dust on the tabletop was swept away by Yang Chen. Then, Yang Chen saw the smooth jade tabletop with thousands of words almost the size of rice grains carved in the center. It was more appropriate to say that it was a text, but it was more like a clumsy painting. The 4 girls came in and searched with their spiritual awareness. Everyone would think that those rice grain-sized words were patterns on the desk and no one would think that they were words. It happened that Yang Chen knew that this was an ancient cuneiform writing. Even Yang Chen didn't recognize these words, but among the jade slips he harvested, there happened to be a jade slip that introduced this ancient writing. When Yang Chen had the impression, he immediately found the jade slip and began to learn and use it now, studying the contents of those words one by one. Soon, Yang Chen discovered that this text was an explanation of this secret plane. The entire secret plane was refined from the body of a complete ancient giant tortoise. The place where Yang Chen and the others came in was the mouth of the ancient giant tortoise. They followed the throat passage and entered this huge square, which was actually the tortoiseshell of the ancient giant tortoise. This canyon area, in ancient times, was still a huge lake, occupying a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Later, as the landform evolved, the lake dried up and turned into a huge plain, and the largest river on the plain has been washed away to form the current canyon after several years. The ancient giant tortoise originally lived in this lake. When a senior from the greatest heaven sect discovered it, it was already a complete body. Only because the giant tortoise had also cultivated by instinct, the body was not transformed and was refined into the current secret plane by the secret plane owner. The huge tortoise shell itself has the natural effect of strengthening the formation. After being refined by the master of the secret plane, the formation here became even more powerful. If it weren't for Yang Chen's golden bell being so perverted, he wouldn't be able to come in at all. Those 2 rooms were the places where the most important things in the secret plane were stored. Yang Chen and the others only came into contact with the outermost blockade formation. In fact, there were 2 sets of formations inside each, which were designed for different purposes. 2 rooms, 2 things, one of them was the same, and there was no word in it, but after seeing the other thing, Yang Chen couldn't help but smile happily. It was nowhere to be found after breaking through the iron shoes, and it was all effortless to get it. Yang Chen didn't know how many places he found and didn't know what was inside, but he didn't expect it to be here. It seemed that Yang Chen's luck was not so bad. Such things were very useful to Yang Chen and Gao Yu. According to the records on the jade slip, it was not known how many ninth water true essence was there. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 485. Gathering the ninth water true essence. It's normal if you think about it. A huge lake with a radius of tens of thousands of miles which was all freshwater, it was in line with the conditions for the ninth water true essence. The most exciting thing was that in this formation method for collecting the ninth water true essence, it was not known how many ninth water true essence would be accumulated after being here for tens of thousands of years. He felt excited when he thought about it. The first wood spiritual solution left by the divine immortal has already made Yang Chen so happy. Now there was the ninth water true essence left by the predecessors of the greatest heaven sect, whether in terms of things or from leaving behind. In terms of his identity, Yang Chen has reasons to be happy. Yang Chen has had several experiences in dealing with this massive amount of spiritual solution. He knew that if he couldn't handle it well, he would end up exploding. If there was not a magic weapon that could be used as a buffer to absorb the ninth water true essence or ninth water spiritual solution, even if Yang Chen cultivated the ninth water true secret art on the spot, it would not help. As a result, it was a little troublesome. Yang Chen didn't have a particularly good ninth water flying sword for the time being. Last time, the greatest heaven sect gave him 2 water attribute flying swords, one was used by Yang Chen to smelt and added to the dragon bone flying sword. And the other was the ninth water flying sword that was barely counted as one of the great yin-yang, 5-element flying swords. However, that ninth water flying sword was obviously not enough to bear this heavy burden. Although Gao Yu's dragon horn has dual attributes of water and fire, the water attribute of that branch was not the attribute of the ninth water, but the attribute of the 10th water. In other words, even if Gao Yu's dragon horn flying sword was successfully refined, it would not be possible to help Yang Chen. Looking at this treasure mountain, this was Yang Chen's first time drooling after a treasure. In the past, whether it was the first wood spiritual solution or the 7th metal spiritual solution, or even the 10th water spiritual solution, there were corresponding magic weapons to withstand the power of these massive spiritual liquids, but now Yang Chen has no way of getting it. Perhaps the original idea of the owner of the secret plane was simply to collect some 9th water true essence, but now after tens of thousands of years or even longer, the 9th water true essence has completely changed. Once the younger generations who don't know the dangers of the 9th water true essence open this room, the entire secret plane would become a huge cemetery, which was absolutely unexpected by the secret plane master. In one room was the 9th water true essence, but the owner of the secret plane didn't explain what was inside the other room. Yang Chen was also hesitating whether to open it. If the things inside were as dangerous as the 9th water true essence, wouldn't it be that he would put himself in danger? Yang Chen may be fine by himself, and there may be a way to escape. However, this time Yang Chen was not alone, instead, he brought his 4 newlywed wives. Letting his family take risks, Yang Chen has no such confidence, even among his wives, there were 2 fairies who would become famous in the future. That's not the reason for Yang Chen to risk his family's life. Speaking of the cold plum fairy and the dancing snow fairy, now Gao Yu and Gongsunling have gradually broken out because of their fame, and they were also called fairies. Because Gao Yu was good at refining tools and always doesn't go out much, when everyone sees her it seems that she was always shrouded in a red flame, so she was called the Red Jade Flame Fairy. Since Gongsunling's natal refining of the mountain river geographical map was completed, she has always been surrounded by a hazy mist. People could only see her shadow at most, but they couldn't see her face clearly. This feature has also let her become known as the Flowing Clouds Fairy. Yang Chen married 4 fairies at the same time alone, making countless male cultivators envious and jealous to death. But not everyone has the guts to challenge a 5th-grade alchemist who was protected by countless X. So for the time being, there were many people who were jealous, but there has never been anyone who really dared to clamor about this with Yang Chen face to face. With Yang Chen, all 4 women in this life would have a greater future, it was not worth it to lose them over a small secret plane. After thinking about it, Yang Chen decided not to take this risk for the time being. From Yang Chen's hesitation, the 4 women also felt abnormal. Sun Qingxu asked immediately, although the other 3 women did not speak. But also looking at Yang Chen, waiting for Yang Chen's explanation. That's it. What do you think? Yang Chen expressed his concerns, then looked at the 4 women and waited for the 4 women to speak. That's it. Sun Qingxu said without knowing the height of the sky and said casually, such a fun thing, of course I have to try it. Listening to Sun Qingxu calling this fun, Yang Chen also felt a little dumbfounded. Just as he was about to talk to Sun Qingxu so that she could not be so careless, Zhanxian next to Yang Chen had already spoken. Little Shu, life and death is a big matter, don't be childish. Oh. Sun Qingxu obediently lowered her head to admit her mistake, without any disobedience. It was amusing for Yang Chen to watch. It seemed that Zhanxian's words were sometimes better than Yang Chen's. Sun Qingxu simply obeyed Zhanxian. Sometimes Yang Chen felt strange, even if Sun Qingxu was led by Zhanxian into the immortal sect, there was no need for such an obedience to her, right? He didn't know if something else happened between the 2 girls that he didn't know. Anyway, someone could make the mischievous Sun Qingxu be honest, so Yang Chen was very happy. Everyone knows the preciousness of the original true essence, but apart from Gongsunling and Yang Chen, experiencing the horror of collecting the 7th metal true essence, no one else has much idea about it. Although Yang Chen said it seriously, it seemed that the effect was not very good. At least Yang Chen had already seen the movement in Gao Yu's eyes. "Can't you try with the dragon horns?" Sure enough, Gao Yu asked the next question. Yang Chen shook his head. He had already said quite clearly before that the dragon horn was of the 10th water attribute, which was not very suitable for the yin and yang of the 9th water attribute. Is it really that scary? Zhanxian did not approve of taking risks, but she somewhat doubted whether Yang Chen had exaggerated the power of these spiritual solutions. After all, when she and Sun Qingxu were healing their wounds, they were soaked in the 7th metal spiritual solution and 1st wood spiritual solution, and at that time they had no spirit power in their entire bodies, and it seemed that they were not as dangerous as Yang Chen said. I have seen hundreds of people directly burst into powder because of it. Yang Chen nodded directly and said without hesitation, Aling has seen it too. Gongsunling was beside him, nodding her head unceasingly. When collecting the 7th metal true essence spiritual solution, those people fell into a deep hole and burst into blood mist before reaching the bottom of the hole. she saw it with her own eyes. Zhanxian also fell silent, it seemed that everyone was already thinking the same, listening to Yang Chen, she was about to give up first. Perhaps, there is also a way. Gongsun suddenly said, and then reminded Yang Chen husband, have you forgotten the usefulness of the mountain river geographical map when you were on the ground of the demon sect domain? Gongsun reminder caused Yang Chen to raise his head fiercely. When the seventh metal spiritual solution was absorbed at that time, a part of the seventh metal true essence was absorbed by the mountain river geographical map. You must know that although the mountain river geography map was said to be a magic weapon of the earth attribute, it was not limited to earth attributes. After absorbing the seventh metal spiritual solution, a large area of seventh metal was formed in the mountain river geographical map, which made the mountains and rivers illusion array appear more real. If you follow this reasoning, then maybe the ninth water true essence could also be absorbed by the mountain river geographical map. Anyway, Yang Chen wasn't about to cultivate the ninth water true secret art right now, but he wanted the gourd to collect the ninth water true essence. The more he thought about it, the more excited Yang Chen was. If the mountain river geographical map could really bear it, doesn't it mean that this trip would not be in vain? Now that this possibility exists, Yang Chen would certainly not let it go. But Yang Chen wouldn't act rashly and immediately open the room recklessly, instead he would let Gongsun test it first. In the medicine garden, there was a huge amount of first wood spiritual solution, which has been controlled by the two tool spirits of Yang Chen, Azhu and Abi. Yang Chen moved all the spirit medicines to the second layer and put the first wood spiritual solution in the first layer, a few less important medicinal materials were subsequently dropped in it, and then the control of the first wood spiritual solution was released. With a bang, the dropped medicinal materials exploded into fragments, and Yang Chen deliberately controlled all this for the girls to see. In addition to the medicinal materials, Yang Chen even found a few flying swords of poor grade and threw them in. Without the slightest accident, those flying swords turned into powder which fell into the ground of the medicine garden space. One could imagine what it was like after ordinary cultivators entered it. After seeing the scene, Gao Yu, Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu both took a cold breath. They didn't expect that these original spiritual solutions would be so terrifying. Fortunately, Yang Chen insisted at first, otherwise, everyone would be in great danger now. Since it was an experiment, of course they must try the power of the mountain river geographical map. Yang Chen hesitated for a while and finally agreed to let Gongsun throw the mountain river geographical map into the first layer of the medicine garden. Yang Chen himself was carefully exploring everything in the medicine garden with his spiritual awareness. Once it was found that something was wrong, he would immediately suppress the first wood spiritual solution to avoid ruining Gongsun magic weapon. It has to be said that the magic weapon of the dragon race was indeed powerful. Once the mountain river geographical map entered the medicine garden, it seemed that they would encounter the same fate as the previous flying swords. But in a blink of an eye, the madly raging first wood spiritual solution, as if suddenly encountered a sponge, was quickly absorbed by the mountain river geographical map. After he observed for a while, there was nothing unusual in the mountain river geographical map. On the contrary, Gongsun felt that there were more small changes in the mountain river geographical map. At least the formation method was more lifelike when simulating the trees that belonged to the first wood. Having passed the test of the seventh metal spiritual solution and the first wood spiritual solution, it seemed to have explained the problem. This dragon clan's magic weapon was indeed powerful, and with the help of those masters who have been taken into it, it should be able to survive the time when Yang Chen collects the ninth water spiritual solution. Even so, apart from letting Gongsun stay in place, Yang Chen took the other three women into the medicine garden as a precaution. After making all the preparations, Yang Chen finally opened the room containing the ninth water true essence, according to the method of breaking the formation described on the jade slip. It was said to be a room, but after pushing the door in, there was only one opening that leads into the ground. Before the Yang Chen family was in the upper space of the tortoiseshell, and the opening in this room could lead to the lower space. Unsurprisingly, at the entrance of the cave leading to the lower space, there were warning words left in ancient texts. The general information was that if you don't have the ninth water true secret art, it was best not to go down lightly, so as to avoid any calamity. The true essence was like this, unless it was those monsters that rely on instinct to cultivate to a certain level, otherwise if there was no true essence cultivation method then it was absorbed rashly, ranging from leaving a whole corpse, in the worst case, there would be no bones, there was no better possibility. After seeing these warnings, Yang Chen smiled at Gongsun, took her by the hand, and walked to the entrance of the cave together. Gongsun controlled the mountain river geographical map, wrapped Yang Chen and herself, and stepped into the ground. Sure enough, as Yang Chen had expected, after tens of thousands of years of collection, the underground ninth water true essence had turned into a thick ninth water spiritual solution, and it was all in the huge underground space. The area of thousands of square meters, it was not known how deep it was completely filled with the ninth water spiritual solution. Countless ninth water spiritual solution rushed towards the two madly, and Gongsun also had to do her best to control the mountain river geographical map and absorb the ninth water spiritual solution at the maximum speed. Yang Chen had already prepared the gourd that looked like an emerald and now opened the mouth of the gourd and absorbed it to his heart's content. Compared with the mountain river geographical map, the gourd was obviously faster, but it was not known by how many times it was. After all, the gourd was a direct collecting tool, but the mountain river geographical map was only having a bit of absorption and the efficiency was not on the same level. But the buffer of the mountain river geographical map, both Yang Chen and Gongsun were protected by the mountain river geographical map without any harm. At this moment, the two people's hearts were completely calm. The two of them dared not relax their vigilance at all times, without knowing how long it would take to completely absorb the ninth water spiritual solution. Although this time was a good opportunity for Yang Chen to cultivate the ninth water true secret art, Yang Chen still did not cultivate out of caution for the three purities secret art. After all, this kind of cultivation of the true essence secret art would definitely cause a change in his spiritual awareness. Although Yang Chen has temporarily stabilized his spiritual awareness and he was not afraid of the splitting of his spiritual awareness, but under the catalysis of the Dragon Yuan, the three purities secret art has reached the fourth stage. Once there was a change, Yang Chen couldn't distinguish it at this time. Seeing that the ninth water spiritual solution in the space was getting less and less, the pressure on Yang Chen and Gongsun was getting lighter and lighter. After almost a year, the ninth water spiritual solution finally reached the bottom. The gourd collected so much ninth water spiritual solution and the color seemed to become more and more verdant green, just like a jasper gourd. The accumulation over the years was really amazing. The ninth water spiritual solution below has turned into a ninth water crystal stones. At this point, the rest was much simpler. Under the protection of the mountain river geographical map, Yang Chen easily received all the ninth water crystal stones in the merits ring. At this point, the collection of the ninth water spiritual solution was complete. Yang Chen also released the three women who were cultivating in the medicine garden and everyone celebrated this happy event. What's in the remaining room? Sun Qingxu was most curious. When things were over, she just came out of the medicine garden without saying a few words. She started to have ideas about the last room. When will you open it to take a look? If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 486. Mystical Box. After getting the ninth water spiritual solution, the one that could use it immediately turned out to be Gao Yu. The ninth water true secret art was obtained by Yang Chen, Gao Yu and Gongsun at the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave. Both the ninth water true essence and the ninth water true secret art were available as long as she wanted to start to cultivate. However, now everyone was most interested in the last room. There was no record of what was in the last room in the jade slips. They didn't know what the original owner of the secret plane thought was. Didn't he want people to open it? Or he doesn't know it himself. After a brief celebration, everyone began to concentrate on the last door. Whether or not to enter has become a difficult problem for everyone. In the previous room, if they didn't have the mountain river geographical map to contain the ninth water spiritual solution, even Yang Chen would not be able to go inside. What if this room was equally dangerous? Is there still room in this secret plane? Gongsun went down to the ground floor with Yang Chen, looked at the surrounding structure and suddenly asked. In the mountain river geographical map, the structure of this secret plane has naturally been simulated. Gongsun did not find any other space except for the appearance of a small room unless there was something else in the room. It's just a small room, it's about 10 feet in total. Yang Chen thought about it and finally decided to go inside to find out. Having reached this point, leaving the room really made him unwilling. This time everyone asked to go in, so Yang Chen's golden bell and Gongsun mountain river geographical map were all opened up to the maximum and even Yang Chen's shuttle was made ready. Once it was found that something was wrong, he would immediately take his whole family and fly away. The door of the room opened, but there was surprisingly no aura inside and then everyone could clearly see the scene in the room. The tugging on their heart also began to relax. In this room, there was no other space, just a square room. However, in the very center of the room, there was a square thing placed there, surrounded by two very strange formations. It was very peculiar, also for the four women, the two formations have long since been lost. However, Yang Chen probably recognized those two formations. The jade slips obtained earlier contained explanations about these two formations, so he understood what was going on at a glance. The two formations were nested, and the outermost one was an overbearing netherworld spirit gathering formation. The only function of the spirit gathering formation was to extract all the ordinary spirit power in the surrounding area without leaving a trace. When Yang Chen and the others were looking for this secret plane, a large plane outside of tens of thousands of miles was almost depleted of spirit power and was not suitable for cultivation at all. It seemed to be the result of this netherworld spirit gathering formation. But the formation nested inside was a nourishing formation. The function of the formation was to use the surrounding spirit power to nourish the things on the eye of the formation. The boxy thing in the middle of the room was what the nourishment formation was nourishing. Strange to say, even if Yang Chen's current spiritual awareness was strong enough to reach the second-grade human immortal realm, he couldn't find out what that square thing was. Although no one knew what this thing was, Yang Chen understands a little bit that after this nourishment formation has been here for tens of thousands of years or even longer nourishment. No matter what it was inside, even if it was a stubborn stone in the beginning, it has now become a top-grade jade. After explaining the effect of the two formations to the four women, Gongsun Ling's eyes flashed with different light instantly. The netherworld spirit gathering formation was not only having an overbearing effect, but it was really not taken seriously by cultivators. Cultivators were the most important to the cycle of the heavenly Tao. Such a way of destroying a foundation would definitely hurt the harmony between heaven and earth. However, the nourishing formation was not to be underestimated. If Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu hadn't been directly soaked by Yang Chen with the true essence spiritual solution, using this nourishing formation would be able to achieve the same effect. Of course, this kind of precious thing must be mastered. Gongsun Ling didn't care what was nourishing in it and immediately asked Yang Chen to translate the jade slip about the nourishing formation and then began to study it herself. The formation was only arranged on the ground and does not hinder walking. Regardless of Gongsun Ling for the time being, Yang Chen and the other three women walked up to the square object and observed it carefully. The square object had a thin layer of dust on the surface. Yang Chen stretched out his finger and wiped it lightly, but there was no response, so everyone started to wipe away all the dust on this thing, revealing its true colors. Under the dust, the square thing turned out to be a perfect translucent glass. After seeing the whole picture, Yang Chen blurted out 7 treasured glazed tile. How is this possible? 7 treasured glazed tile. What is this? Why is it impossible? Sun Qingxu asked the most questions immediately. Gao Yu and Zhanxian both understood this characteristic of Sun Qingxu and they didn't say anything, just waiting for Sun Qingxu to ask. This is a kind of heaven material and earth treasure produced in the immortal world, it is impossible to have in the mortal world. Yang Chen's face was solemnly able to scrape off a layer of frost. Things from the immortal world appearing in the mortal world, how was this possible? The girls were also shocked, although they didn't understand what the 7 treasured glazed tile could do, the product of the immortal world was enough to scare many people. Yang Chen's mind has already begun to turn in tides. What was the possibility that things from the immortal world would reach the mortal world? The descent of the consciousness clone. That's just a clone of consciousness, it's impossible to bring things down. Could there be any unknown channel in the immortal world to connect with the mortal world? This problem was no small matter. Once such a channel really exists, then Yang Chen's revenge action would immediately face a catastrophe. If the 7 treasured glazed tile could come down, maybe a Great Principle Golden Immortal could come down. What's more, let alone a Great Principle Golden Immortal, a small Golden Immortal could make Yang Chen die without a place to be buried. For a while, cold sweat gurgled down Yang Chen's head, making the surrounding women feel a little frightened. In their minds, Yang Chen had never been so flustered. Whenever they saw Yang Chen, he was full of self-confidence, so it was the shock of Mount Tai collapsing in front of their own eyes after seeing the situation. The women also felt that the situation was serious, but their understanding of the immortal world was really limited and they could only look at Yang Chen, hoping that he could give an answer. How did this 7 treasured glazed tile come to the lower realm? Who brought it down here? These are all questions that were difficult to explain. There was even the most serious problem, since this 7 treasured glazed tile has been nourished for tens of thousands of years in the secret plane left by the predecessors of the greatest heaven sect, does it mean that the greatest heaven sect has the support of the immortal world? While Yang Chen had been thinking hard, Sun Qingxu next to him, watching Yang Chen's gaffe like this, couldn't help but leaned against him, snuggled into Yang Chen's arms, and gently hugged Yang Chen. Yang Chen subconsciously hugged Sun Qingxu, feeling the softness coming from his chest, and he was relieved. He was really too nervous. If the greatest heaven sect really had the support of the experts in the immortal world, it would have ruled the mortal world tens of thousands of years ago, why would they wait until now? What is the use of the 7 treasured glazed tile? Seeing Yang Chen's expression eased, Sun Qingxu asked timidly. The 7 treasured glazed tile can completely isolate the exploration of spiritual awareness, no matter how strong the spiritual awareness is, it won't work. Yang Chen replied subconsciously. This answer also surprised the women, no wonder it was impossible to detect what was in it with the spiritual awareness probe, that's how it was. Is it possible to use the 7 treasured glaze tile to refine a hidden magic weapon that others will not see? Sun Kingsu immediately became interested and hurriedly asked. It's just that they can't detect the 7 treasured glaze tile inside the weapon, but they can still discover the weapon itself. Yang Chen smiled, rubbed Sun Kingsu's head and said with a smile, it's most suitable to make a box. Sun Kingsu sighed, seeming to feel that her hopes were shattered and she was lazily unable to lift her energy, leaning in Yang Chen's arms, simply relying on it. The biggest use of the 7 treasured glaze tile is to preserve the vitality of a body for a long time. Yang Chen stared at the huge piece of the 7 treasured glaze tile, and he continued, if some dormant pets or injured people are wrapped in it, even if it is kept for a long time, they will still be alive and will not die. Having said this, Yang Chen's eyes lit up suddenly and he looked at this square piece of 7 treasured glaze tile in an incredible way. Could it be that some living things are kept in it? The girls were all refreshed and everyone began to observe it carefully. It was a pity that the inside of the 7 treasured glaze tile was isolated from spiritual awareness exploration. There was no way to detect what was inside, and it was not completely transparent but vague. With such a large volume, it was impossible to see the contents clearly. But one thing everyone has confirmed, there must be something inside, because the vague color faintly revealed what was wrapped inside, they just don't know what it was. There was no record on the jade slips, presumably because even the owner of the secret plane didn't even know what it was. It's just because this 7 treasured glaze tile would actively absorb weak spiritual power, and he may be aware that something was inside. But he couldn't open it up to see what happened, so he simply used the nourishing formation to nourish it for a long time and left it to future generations to decrypt its content. What the secret plane master didn't expect was that the key he left behind was such that no one could understand among the greatest heaven sect's current disciples, and it was finally made cheaper for Yang Chen. But even if the people from the greatest heaven sect found this place, he believed that they wouldn't understand what it was inside this square thing. Not everyone has memories from the immortal world. This thing could be regarded as a 7 treasured glaze tile. You could use the 7 treasured glaze tile to store things. It's still such a precious material, the original owner's financial resources could be imagined. After spinning around the 7 treasured glaze tile many times, Yang Chen looked at it carefully for a long time. Generally speaking, if the 7 treasured glaze tile was used to maintain biological activity, there must be a way to open it. The craftsmanship of the 7 treasured glaze tile was too high, and Yang Chen hasn't noticed any gaps in it for such a long time. The girls did the same when they watched it around, without any flaws. There must be something in it. There was no doubt about this, they couldn't find the smallest gap with their spiritual awareness. Yang Chen simply closed his eyes and carefully touched the whole box from top to bottom with his fingers. The sensitive touch on the fingers sometimes works better than the eyes, but after touching it again, Yang Chen was still a little depressed. On this, there was actually no trace of openings at all. Everyone was at a loss, staring at this huge 7 treasured glaze tile. There was a feeling of entering the treasure mountain and returning empty-handed. Thinking about it, this was a good precious material in the world of immortals. What would it be like when it was really going to be opened? Would there be a backlash after opening it? Without even thinking about it, things produced in the immortal world could only lead to disaster for any mortals playing with it. Moreover, the 7 treasured glaze tile was originally used to protect the injured. If the dragon horn flying sword was successfully refined, it might be effective, and other things don't need to be considered for the time being. After looking up and down a few times and touching it a few times, after entering through door, Yang Chen finally put his gaze to the bottom of the 7 treasured glaze tile. The bottom of the box was placed on the nourishing formation, which absorbs spirit power and receives nourishment, which was also the part that everyone has not checked. However, once the 7 treasured glaze tile was lifted, the nourishing formation would lose its effect. Yang Chen thought for a while, and after communicating with the girls, he made a decision to lift the 7 treasured glaze tile. As soon as the 7 treasured glaze tile was lifted from the eye of the formation, the nourishing formation immediately lost its effect, and Yang Chen and the others immediately noticed the power of the netherworld spirit gathering formation. The escape spirit power directly turned the room into a paradise for cultivation like the Dragon Palace. The bottom of the box was indeed slightly different. Although he couldn't see it, Yang Chen was able to feel it. There was a square gap along the 4 sides, presumably this was where the opening of the box was. He asked the girls to retreat and told Gongsun Ling to use the mountain river geographical map to protect the girls. Yang Chen also shielded his whole body with the golden bell and then tried to open the 7 treasured glaze tile. The opening of the glaze tile actually had a small formation circle, but it was just a common rejuvenation formation in the immortal world. In the surprised eyes of the women, after Yang Chen made hundreds of secret techniques in succession, he easily unlocked the rejuvenation formation. Click, a slight sound sounded, and along the square gap, a big crack appeared at the bottom of the box. After making a sizzling sound, he finally stopped. At this time, it was obvious that there was a base below, and the box above seemed to be a lid. Yang Chen grasped the top of the 7 treasured glaze tile with both hands and lifted the upper box up. As the box moved away from the base of the ground inch by inch, the situation inside the box appeared in everyone's eyes. A naked person was lying flat on a comfortable cushion on the base, with both hands on chest, eyes closed, like a living statue. The most shocking thing was that this person's chest was still moving up and down, which meant that this person was still breathing normally. This mysterious person who they didn't know how long he had layered in the 7 treasured glaze tile was still alive. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 487. Understanding. The 4 women have been married to Yang Chen for several years and have already become women, no longer the innocent girls. Facing the body of this naked man, the 4 women only blushed a little, took a breath, and then became nonchalant. It was really that this body was too special, so that all the girls cheered up and watched it carefully. Yang Chen didn't even say a word, he started directly and touched the whole body bones of the sexy man. Sure enough, it is the body of a Great Luo Golden Immortal who has undergone the 3 tribulations tempering body and the Great Luo Heavenly Tribulation. Yang Chen quickly came to this conclusion, but what made him puzzled was that although this man's body seemed to have experienced this, but relatively speaking, it didn't reach the intensity of a Great Luo Golden Immortal, which was very puzzling. That's what a Great Luo Golden Immortal is. Sun Kingxu reached out and touched the man's body and said with a bit of disdain, not as strong as our current body. Several people had used their spiritual awareness to probe, this body was indeed somewhat different, but if it was the body of the Great Luo Golden Immortal mentioned by Yang Chen, the Great Luo Golden Immortal was too weak. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness has been infiltrating the man's body, and he probed it carefully. This man's physical condition was all normal, all parts were in peak state, but he doesn't know why, he was so weak. The man has not woken up, even if he was so tossed by the crowd, he still kept his original posture and was sleeping quietly. After investigating for a long time, Yang Chen found out that this body did not have any spirit power, it was empty, as if it were just a skin and nothing else. Stimulated by the spiritual awareness, the other party did not wake up, he had been maintaining that kind of calm breathing, without even a hint of movement. What's going on? Yang Chen couldn't figure it out. An obvious person from the immortal world, how could it appear in the mortal world and still look like this? The first thought Yang Chen thought was that this guy descended from the immortal world, has all his consciousness been lost? This was very likely, the greatest heaven sex formation method used to draw a consciousness clone of the immortal realm into the lower realm, would make about 90% of its own consciousness, and memories disappear. This was still under the protection of countless masters, even the operator himself had to lose thousands of years of cultivation base to achieve this. And this guy doesn't have any spirit power in his body. Could it be that he has lost all his cultivation base? At the same time, all consciousness was lost. According to this situation, if it were not for the protection of the 7 treasured glaze tile, this guy might have stopped breathing long ago, and his body would have also turned into ashes. Where could he sleep so peacefully until now? There were many doubts, although the body has experienced the Great Luo Heavenly Tribulation, but being so weak was the biggest problem. The latter were also unsolvable puzzles. He checked continuously for more than a day. Yang Chen has checked everything that Yang Chen could check, and the conclusion was that this guy has no spirit power in his body. The body was also very weak because of the descent into the lower realm from the immortal world. There was not the slightest bit of spiritual awareness, not even consciousness. This situation, it's like the puppets prepared by the martial sects to attract the upper realm consciousness clone to the lower realm. The difference was that the puppets were having consciousness, and this guy was not even having a consciousness. When thinking of the word puppet, a thought suddenly flashed in Yang Chen's mind. Since this guy was in such a situation, does that mean that he could use his spiritual awareness to possess him? As soon as the idea of possessing him came out, Yang Chen couldn't stop it anymore. Under the Dragon Yuan's catalysis, the 3 purities secret art entered the 4th stage, but Yang Chen knew that in fact, his spiritual awareness still stayed above the 3rd realm and could not be improved. Trapped in the trouble of his spiritual awareness splitting, Yang Chen has not dared to improve his 3 purities secret art to the later stage. Now that there was such a body that has no consciousness, no spiritual awareness, no spirit power, but was a Great Luo Golden Immortal, isn't it a great opportunity given to him by the heavens? As long as his spiritual awareness splits and the splitted spiritual awareness takes over this guy's body, there would be no more trouble of splitting spiritual awareness in the future. Moreover, this body was an immortal body, and he didn't know how good the aptitude for cultivation was. Wouldn't he kill 2 birds with 1 stone by then? The more he thought about this, the more Yang Chen couldn't help but wandered on the ground with his hands. The women who saw his actions were very puzzled. After watching him walk for a long time, this time Gongsun Ling finally asked. Are there any troublesome decisions? Gongsun Ling's words represented everyone's thoughts. There's one. Yang Chen didn't conceal this aspect from his wife, but simply introduced the choices he faced. Of course, the three purities secret art was very important and he can't mention it, he could only say that his spiritual awareness has reached a bottleneck and he needs to split it. After the divine consciousness splits and seizes the body, which one will be you? Gongsun Ling was more interested in this question and it was also the most concerning point. Of course I am still me and the other is just a clone. Yang Chen replied without thinking. What impact will it have on you? Gao Yu was concerned about the impact on Yang Chen after doing this. If there was any bad result, it would not be worth the loss. It's not that Gao Yu was cautious, it's true that the mortal cultivators have heard of double cultivation, but they have never heard of a person who splits their spiritual awareness and consciousness. This realm was really too mysterious, and the women can't help but feel a little bit too worried about the mystery. Impact? Yang Chen was stunned, then smiled. It will improve my realm. Then what are you waiting for? Sun Qingxu made a decision directly for Yang Chen, such a good opportunity, and it's still an immortal body, what's to worry about? All the girls were in fact of the same mind. Since it has no bad effect on Yang Chen and could improve his realm, this kind of good thing was of course to be done. Yang Chen was actually troubled by an immortal body which descended from the immortal realm. He was worried about the way the immortal body got to the lower realm, but also worried about the troubles that would be caused later. When Sun Qingxu said that, he was stunned and then immediately he let go of his thoughts. Yes, such a good opportunity, why would he hesitate? Even if there was trouble in the future, the water comes to cover, the soldiers come to block it, and he has already died once. Why bother to live this life like this? Suddenly, Yang Chen realized that his mentality had changed a lot since he was reborn. Although he has done a lot of things by relying on the advantages of his rebirth, he has also walked a long way on his own road of revenge, but maybe because of the experience in the heavenly court, he was very afraid of the greatest heaven sect and even sometimes he was only scheming behind the scenes. But never stood on the opposite side of the other party. Just like this time, it was a very simple decision. Since the people of the greatest heaven sect didn't care about anything and kept this immortal body for tens of thousands of years or even longer, what were they still afraid of? Looking forward to the future, things were not decisive enough, these were some principles for Yang Chen to do things in this life. It seemed that he was not alone, but his Tao heart still has a shortcoming. If it weren't for Sun Qingxu's nonchalant sentence, Yang Chen would have never thought so much. Suddenly, Yang Chen became enlightened, as if he suddenly became empty in his heart, he felt unspeakably comfortable. Nothing could restrain Yang Chen's heart. To put it in a plain language, at this moment, Yang Chen would be incomprehensible with indescribable thoughts. I have enlightenment, act as Dharma protectors for me. Yang Chen swallowed a second-grade questioning inner heart pill without hesitation and then directly sat down on the spot, and at the same time he began to cultivate the three purities secret art, he also began to comprehend his own gains. The girls didn't expect such a result, but there were not many opportunities for their husband to have this kind of enlightenment. Everyone was careful not to disturb Yang Chen, and each looked for a direction and protected Yang Chen while cultivating. But this enlightenment, Yang Chen realized that the third stage of the three purities secret art almost instantly. This was not a direct promotion with the Dragon Yuan's help, but a real understanding of the mystery of the third stage of the three purities secret art. The hidden dangers caused by the Dragon Yuan's forced ascension before were corrected by Yang Chen one by one during this cultivation. The parts that he didn't understand and didn't ask for a thorough understanding before now suddenly became clear one by one, and a new world was revealed to him in an instant. That's why Yang Chen frequently sighed like waking up from a dream while cultivating. Not only the third stage, but even the previous first stage and second stage, looking back now, it seemed that there were some unsatisfactory areas, he just took this opportunity to solve them one by one. The sea of consciousness began to churn wildly, and the sea of consciousness that had been so solidified had collapsed once again. The sea of consciousness that Yang Chen was so proud of had another scene of landslides and cracks in an instant. Fortunately, Yang Chen still remembered that there was a mark of Li Lihing's spiritual awareness in the sea of consciousness, and he deliberately threw the mark into the dragon's mouth and then into the river of blood. In Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, the only constants were the bloody river and white dragon, and everything else was changing. After the complete collapse, the sea of consciousness began to rebuild, but this time, it was based on Yang Chen's re-understanding of the three purities secret art. Even the ninefold thunder tribulation tempering does not seem to be as good as Yang Chen's own perception. After the sea of consciousness once again returned to its original appearance, Yang Chen only felt that there was no other part of his body that was not refreshed. His mind was free and there was no hindrance in his heart. This was the Tao heart that a true cultivator should have. When Yang Chen cultivated in retreat, the four women around him felt more and more surprised. At first, he sat there quietly, but slowly, Yang Chen slowly released an unignorable aura that filled the secret plane. This aura grew higher and finally reached a peak, suddenly disappearing without a trace like a crash. But then, an aura that was more solid and substantial than before began to climb from nothing until it reached the highest point. The four women around only felt that this new aura was completely different from the previous ones and even different from any one they had seen before. The kind of aura that needed to be looked up from the bottom of the heart entangled the hearts of the four women tightly, as if they were willing to follow this aura, they could rush straight to the peak without any regrets. Just when the four women were also driven by Yang Chen's spiritual awareness and were immersed in a state of selflessness, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness finally began the ultimate change of the third stage of the three purities secret art and the spiritual awareness began to split a little bit. Yang Chen never thought that the splitting of the spiritual awareness would be so painful, as if someone was holding a hacksaw and slowly sawing his head in half. If it hadn't been for Yang Chen going through countless hardships in his previous life and his mind being as hard as steel, maybe he would not be able to bear such pain and interrupt his cultivation. The more painful it was, the more Yang Chen persisted. Yang Chen understood this truth. Fortunately, the first split of the spiritual awareness did not last too long, it lasted only a few hours. The original complete piece of spiritual awareness began to become two parts. What surprised Yang Chen was that the splitted part of the spiritual awareness was just a small piece of his original spiritual awareness, almost negligible. But this small part of the spiritual awareness contains all the memories of Yang Chen up to now, and there seemed to be nothing else. It felt very strange, as if one person suddenly became two. Next to the immortal body, Yang Chen certainly did not hesitate to send his splitted spiritual awareness to the immortal body, and then quietly waited for the small piece of spiritual awareness to succeed. Yang Chen's body could clearly perceive that the splitted spiritual awareness had entered the immortal body and then released his memory, occupying the opponent's mind. The series of processes were very mysterious, just like watching a person grow from nothing. The small piece of spiritual awareness that occupied the immortal body, after it completely controlled the immortal body, it directly transformed into the divine consciousness of the immortal body itself, opening up a small sea of consciousness and then stopping all actions. All these actions were clearly in the mind of Yang Chen, as if he had witnessed it with his own eyes, and everything in the split body could not escape his observation. He thought that the immortal body would stand up immediately, but unexpectedly, after seizing the body, the consciousness of the splitted spiritual awareness seemed to run out of energy and began to fall asleep. However, the current deep sleep was completely different from the previous deep sleep of the immortal body. In the past, what was sleeping was just a skin sac without consciousness and feeling, but now, it was Yang Chen's clone body sleeping. As soon as this process was over, Yang Chen suddenly had another awakening in his mind. The avatar consciousness that was split from the spiritual awareness was basically an extra insurance for his own body. When the consciousness of his real body dies, the consciousness of the clone would be awakened. The secret of the three purities secret art was originally here. With such an immortal body, even if Yang Chen went to the greatest heaven sect desperately now, he wouldn't have any fear. Even if his body dies, Yang Chen will not die. This immortal body was another life for Yang Chen. With this solid backing, Yang Chen would no longer have any fear. Next, Yang Chen only had to finish tempering the immortal beheading blade and he could kill in all four directions. However, another person's shadow flashed through Yang Chen's mind. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, he was the one who taught Yang Chen the three purities secret art. Now Yang Chen could completely conclude that the Supreme Lord was definitely not dead. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 488. Pressuring the Greatest Heaven Sect. If Yang Chen's three purities secret art for cultivating the heart was the same as the three purities secret art of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, then Yang Chen could be completely sure that the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord was definitely not dead. Even if the Supreme Elderly Lord had his head beheaded by Yang Chen himself on the Immortal Executioner Stage, it was only his body. As soon as the main body dies, his clone, which he does not know where it was hidden, would immediately wake up to replace the main body and recultivate to become another expert. No one knows what the clone of the Supreme Elderly Lord would be, naturally, no one would know who the Supreme Elderly Lord would be in the future. At least in the memory of Yang Chen's previous life, there hasn't been any memory of the Supreme Elderly Lord. Yang Chen was not afraid of any conspiracy hidden by the Supreme Elderly Lord, it didn't make much sense to him. The Supreme Elderly Lord would not notice a little executioner like him. Even if Yang Chen's 3 purity secret art was passed to him at that time, he wouldn't have thought that Yang Chen would be able to leave the Immortal Executioner Stage, right? If it's the Supreme Elderly Lord, then many things have been explained. For example, the origin of this immortal body, counting the entire heavenly court, it seemed that only the Supreme Elder had the ability to reach the 3 realms, not even the Jade Emperor could do it. Among other things, the Immortal Executioner Stage was refined by the Supreme Elderly Lord. It was truly amazing to allow mortals in the mortal world to control and punish the immortals in the immortal world. Speaking of this, it was really easy for the Supreme Elderly Lord to send a few immortal bodies to the mortal world. Maybe the present one was sent by the Supreme Elderly Lord tens of thousands of years ago. After all, the 3 realms were different and it was common for them to be picked up by the seniors of the greatest heaven sect after a while. Otherwise, it was impossible to explain the existence of such a large 7 treasured glazed tile and the immortal body. After he figured this out, Yang Chen seemed to have less doubts. Anyway, this immortal body was already a separate body of himself, as long as it was preserved. Once something happens to his body, he could cultivate again and come again, which was equivalent to 1 more life. Such a great thing should make him happy. Not everyone could pick up the omission of the Supreme Elderly Lord. Maybe Yang Chen hit this kind of big luck this time, it's heaven defying. While Yang Chen was having fun with the ladies here, there was another turmoil on the side of the greatest heaven sect. From nothing, the young sect master Li Lihing had another accident. Of course, it wasn't a bad thing, it was a good thing. The young sect master directly turned his residence into dust again. Although some property was lost, for the greatest heaven sect this was a great thing. This shows that Li Lihing has become more and more able to get in touch with the senior Liu Fengzi in the spiritual world. Although Li Lihing fainted here, the overwhelming aura that shocked all the Daching masters seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. The cultivation base of the predecessor Liu Fengzi seemed to have increased again. When Li Lihing woke up and the sect master and several core elders inquired, he honestly talked about this change. It's still an earth-shaking change. Sometimes, Li Lihing couldn't even use words to describe, he could only mean that he couldn't speak in words, and the description was not thorough enough. The core elders in the Daching stage eyes almost fell out of their sockets with greed. This kind of scene does not know whether the life or death scene was real or the scene of spiritual awareness mapping. If you let them see, it definitely has the effect of greatly improving their cultivation realm. You know, that's a scene in the spiritual world and they felt excited when they thought about it. However, the elders also have self-knowledge and they won't get anything without the spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method. Now that Li Lihing encountered this kind of thing again, it could only be said to be Li Lihing's blessing. In the future, they would have to vigorously please Li Lihing and let him ask senior Liu Fengzi for directions in their cultivation. They saw what happened with Li Tianqing, the sect master, who was directed by the senior Liu Fengzi, and he found a solution right away. Although it was hard to find people who had full natal spiritual roots with water attributes, at least he had a direction, which was much better than their blind groping. Li Lihing, who had become a valuable treasure again, was keenly aware that his position in the sect seemed to have been vaguely improved. The elders would often come over and ask about his well-being, and even some of the servants around him were flattered by others. This feeling was simply too good. The young sect master of the mortal world's greatest sect, the future sect master, Li Lihing, seems to have seen his glorious future, and he has seen his great power in the mortal world. His whole body seemed to be capable when he got up, he naturally even spoke with a commanding tone. Originally, Yang's eye still had a period of imprisonment, but under Yang Lan's care and pleasing, Li Lihing also agreed to Yang Lan and tried to release Yang's eye as soon as possible. Li Lihing himself had no plans to succeed, but when he secretly said this to the hallmaster of the law enforcement hall. Without saying anything, the hallmaster directly brought the person to Li Lihing. This made Li Lihing a little surprised himself. When did the head of the law enforcement hall become so kind? Yang's eye, who was rescued, was almost crippled. A newly promoted Jitan stage master, who spent so long in a place like the cold deep pool, has almost been frozen into a popsicle. Even after he came out, it would be a long time before slowly recovering. This was still early to be rescued. If they waited until the actual sentence expired before he was brought out, it was estimated that Yang Lan would only be able to prepare for a funeral. Yang's eye also learned from Yang Lan the reason why his sentence was increased for no reason. In the end, it was because of Yang Chen. Li Lihing now needed more spirit congealing pills, and no one except Yang Chen could refine them, but Yang's eye had the idea to frame Yang Chen, so he would naturally be punished. After understanding the whole story, Yang's eye thanked Li Lihing on the surface, but in his heart, he hated Yang Chen even more. Incidentally, Li Lihing was also hated by him. He obviously had the ability to let him leave the cold deep pool, but he insisted on waiting until now. If he had the opportunity, he wouldn't mind even plotting against Li Lihing. He didn't know when Yang's eye felt that everyone was against him, and even if Yang Chen cultivated faster than him, his cultivation base was higher than him, and his realm was stronger than him, these were all sins. This kind of distorted mentality made his hatred for Yang Chen stronger and stronger, and he wanted to eat his meat and sleep to dispel his hatred. As for Li Liheng, he was a temporary backer for Yang's eye. It was impossible to say that when Yang's eye gets what he wants, he would not kick him away. He really thought that he was the young sect master who was above everything, should everyone be inferior to him. Of course, Yang Chen didn't know that Yang's eye's mentality had changed like this. He was now considering where to send this clone to be absolutely safe so that he could sit back and relax in the future. The choice of the place was indeed a headache. But soon Yang Chen didn't worry so much. The mischievous Sun Kingsu always gave Yang Chen some key tips. For example, this time, she inadvertently said as long as people can't get in, it's fine. Suddenly it gave Yang Chen a reminder. Was there a safer place where people can't go in than the Dragon Palace that he visited last time in the South China Sea? That place was originally called the Sea of No Return, and countless Dacheng stage sea beasts died there during this period, not to mention the human cultivators, it was simply the most suitable place. Not only was there safety, but there was also an important benefit. In the middle of the sea, it could provide endless 10th water true essence and spirit power nourishment. No matter how long it takes, there was no need to worry. In this place, the 9th water true essence has been exhausted because the spiritual solution has been dried up, there would be no more 9th water true essence, and the spirit power of the surrounding 10,000 li has been drawn by the netherworld spirit gathering formation. In more than 100 years, there might not be a trace of spirit power here. But it was different in the Sea of No Return, there were countless spiritual veins, plus the infinitely tightening 10th water true essence, it would just continue to nourish this immortal body. As for how this clone came out once an accident happened at that time, Yang Chen didn't care. With his current experience, there were at least a few ways to leave, and it would not be difficult to have a clone of all his memories. For the time being, Yang Chen was no longer worried about the place to keep the clone. Next, it was natural to sum up the gains and losses, and then start to refine the sword embryos of the life source flying sword for Zhanxian and Sun Kingsu. Of course, after this, it was time to help his master Gao Yu refine the dragon horn flying swords. However, before that, Yang Chen hadn't forgotten to let Li Liheng consume a few more spirit congealing pills. The greatest heaven sect really thought that he had refined enough spirit congealing pills so he could fall into trouble and sell the compass that tracked him so that people could chase him down and cause trouble for him. Yang Chen wanted to see what his face would like when he saw Wholemaster Mao again. As a result, Li Liheng, the young sect master of the greatest heaven sect, was once again fortunate to connect with Liu Fengzi, the predecessor of the spiritual world. But Yang Chen's little tricks made Li Liheng exhausted and he had to rely on taking the spirit congealing pills multiple times to reluctantly establish this connection in order to maintain a longer duration. The explanation given to Li Liheng about the incident was also very relaxed, his own cultivation base improved again, and the gap between the two sides widened again, so this sense of exhaustion would become heavier and heavier. There were only two solutions, one was that Li Liheng's cultivation base should be rapidly improved and the other was to take more spirit congealing pills. This time, the contact between the two parties lasted about half an hour and Li Liheng also asked the questions they encountered in their cultivation one by one, according to the opinions of the core elders. Yang Chen had obtained the greatest heaven sect's cultivation methods from several places. Although it was incomplete, he still knows a few well-known cultivation methods. Coupled with his knowledge as a great Luo Golden Immortal, he gave detailed answers to those people's questions. Of course, Yang Chen won't explain the problem all at once, and he left a little detail, enough to dangle the appetite of these people. He didn't want to increase the strength of the top experts of the greatest heaven sect in a short period of time. However, after all this tossing, Li Liheng used no less than 10 pills, which was more than double the previous 4. In the end, Li Liheng ended this spatial spiritual awareness contact by falling into a coma. After waking up, Li Liheng did not dare to hide anything to himself. He was a wise man, he knew where his status came from. So before a few elders asked any questions, he took the initiative to give a detailed account of the experience. The problems of several elders have been the bottleneck that have troubled them for many years. It was said that this kind of bottleneck would definitely appear after a certain level of cultivation. There were only a few ways to solve it. Either retreat for enlightenment or go out to gain experience and improve the cultivation base, or just take some kind of natural treasures and so on. But the elders of the greatest heaven sect, especially those who have achieved a position of core elders, were so powerful and rare in the mortal world that the satisfaction they bring was sometimes even more intoxicating than the improvement of cultivation. Let them give up all this and cultivate hard in retreat or go out to cultivate, they may not be able to endure that kind of hardship. Naturally, this bottleneck limits their cultivation base, and Yang Chen's explanations for everyone's problems really made the people feel refreshed. It was as if a beacon light suddenly appeared in their midst. It seemed that as long as they followed, they would be able to see the day they would ascend. It's just that the people who were immersed in the surprise didn't realize that the direction was there, but there was no specific way to break through the bottleneck in front of them immediately. There were a few tricky answers that would allow them to solve a small part of the problem in a short time, but they couldn't overcome the bottleneck fundamentally. Unfortunately, everyone was in ecstasy and no one noticed this. This spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method was simply the best treasure given to the greatest heaven sect from heaven. With this, why worry that the greatest heaven sect would not dominate the mortal world? The thought that if the greatest heaven sect dominates the Tao sects, the power of everyone would be increased as never before, the core elders burst with excitement. Now that their own cultivation base was expected to be improved and their power was expected to increase, at this point, what more could they want? The only problem was the spirit congealing pills. Last time, Yang Chen gave a sufficient amount, but the consumption this time, plus the previous ones, was obviously insufficient. If it was in the past, they might still think about going to Yang Chen when it doesn't work in the end. But now after the two spatial spiritual awareness connections, they have discovered that compared with the future of the greatest heaven sect, Hallmaster Mao's face and some of the things outside of the greatest heaven sect were completely inadequate. In any case, they must find Yang Chen as soon as possible and let him refine enough spirit congealing pills. As for the price, it doesn't matter at all. As for the compasses that have been sent out before, most of them have been recovered, but some have not been recovered. All the remaining owners that could be killed were killed, even those of the big sects who cannot be killed were strictly warned that if they dared to attack Yang Chen at will, they would become the next Hu Qianyi. Yang Chen and the girls didn't know this. Even if Yang Chen knew it, he planned to whet the greatest heaven sect's appetite. When more of the spirit congealing pills were consumed, they would become more anxious. At that time, Yang Chen's bamboo sticks would be able to knock more loudly. Who could have imagined that by Yang Chen accidentally leaving a mark of spiritual awareness, he would be able to make the spirit congealing pills a deadly spot in the greatest heaven sect. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 489. The Green Jade Immortal Island also has an unfilled disciple. Yang Chen's 3 purities secret art had truly and completely entered into the 4th stage. As a result of the splitting of the spiritual awareness, Yang Chen did not lose much spiritual awareness. On the contrary, after the split, he no longer worried and gained more diligence and space. Strictly speaking, Yang Chen was forcibly promoted to the 4th stage by the Dragon Yuan before, but he was not at the real 4th stage. It was just that he had reached that form, but he had not reached the spiritual awareness. Now he was considered to have both form and spirit. But the strong spiritual awareness as the foundation, whether it was to refine the flying sword embryos for Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu or cooperating with Gao Yu to refine the dragon horn flying swords, it would become much easier. The Scarlet Snow Spirit Crystal was a top-grade metal attribute material, and it takes at least 100 years or even longer to complete the creation of a sword embryo with a general refining technique. There was no way around it, a common fire had no effect on this material at all, unless it was a specialized fire attribute cultivator, and it needed at least a 5th-grade fire seed to achieve the smelting effect. If Zhanxian was to create the sword embryo by herself, she could only use the method similar to that of Gao Yu, she could only carefully sculpt it when she was able to control it with her spirit power for dozens or hundreds of years. After this time, she would wait until the sword embryo was complete. As for letting a master refinee help to build the sword embryo, it could shorten the time by many years. However, without Yang Chen's pet Shout Yan, capable of devouring the tool spirits, it would take longer to get rid of the traces left by the refiner in the sword embryo. The more advanced the material, the longer it would take. After all, the stronger the refiner was, the harder it was to get rid of the traces, this was common sense. But under Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven-burning fire, the Scarlet Snow Spirit Crystal was like butter, melting anytime and anywhere without the slightest difficulty. The dome hull was also thrown into the flame by Yang Chen without any regret, smelting it together. As for the sword formation, Yang Chen did not directly use it. Looking at Zhanxian's future thoughts in this way, if she wants, she could refine the sword formation as her own life source flying sword. Everything depends on Zhanxian's liking, after all, she was the cold plum fairy in her previous life, and she didn't seem to have the shadow of a sword formation. In the memory of Yang Chen, the shape of the flying sword used by the cold plum fairy when she swept across the immortal world should be Zhanxian's favorite appearance. Therefore, Yang Chen directly created the flying sword embryo in that shape. The powerful flames, the incomparably powerful spiritual awareness, and the incomparable refining techniques. This sword embryo, one of the strongest metal attributes flying swords in the mortal world, cost Yang Chen a lot of time to build. Fortunately, Yang Chen and the girls were already Yuning stage ancestors, otherwise this process would take several times longer. Sure enough, as soon as the flying sword's embryo took shape, Zhanxian took it up in love. After waving it a few times, she seemed to notice the feeling of incomparable smoothness. In Zhanxian's eyes, Yang Chen must have put a lot of thought into her flying sword, and he must be very concerned about her preferences, otherwise he would not create a sword embryo that suits her characteristics. It must be known that Yang Chen and Zhanxian have been fighting together a few times, but only a few times. It was absolutely necessary to understand Zhanxian's usage habits in this short period of time. At least Zhanxian asked herself, until now, she still doesn't know Yang Chen's fighting habits. This discovery made Zhanxian's heart very sweet. Although she had always maintained a frosty face in front of the other women, the moment she got her flying sword, she couldn't help but throw herself in Yang Chen's arms and enjoyed it fiercely, the feeling of being pampered. What could explain everything better than the fact that her mate thinks about her like this? Zhanxian was glamorous and aloof, but she does not exclude being cared for by her own mate. A sword embryo has been built and Zhanxian could take it to adapt to it, but it was not yet possible to temper it as her life source magic weapon. After Xiaoyan swallowed the dragon bead, it was still digesting, and it was estimated that it would take some time before he could finish. At that time, after Xiaoyan completely wiped out Yang Chen's aura from the sword embryo, Zhanxian would temper it again, that would be the most time-saving way. After completing Zhanxian's sword embryo, Sun Qingxu was next. Relatively speaking, Sun Qingxu's heavenly thunderwood was also a top-level material, but the difficulty of refining it was less than that of the scarlet snow spirit crystal. However, the use of flames to refine the heavenly thunderwood was a bit too much. Yang Chen used the wood-based refining technique and also chose Sun Qingxu's favorite flying sword style from his previous life. Sun Qingxu's performance with the flying sword was many times more unrestrained than Zhanxian. After more than a year passed, Sun Qingxu was overjoyed with her flying sword embryo. She immediately jumped into Yang Chen's arms in ecstasy and offered him a kiss without any hesitation. "Thank you, husband." Sun Qingxu no longer knew what to say to express her happiness. Only then did she understand why even the frosty sister Zhanxian couldn't help but rush into Yang Chen's arms after getting the sword embryo. The feeling of being taken care of by their husband was really wonderful. 2 female flying sword embryos were completed in 2 years. Next, Yang Chen was doing his best to help Gao Yu begin to refine the dragon horn flying swords. But the whole set of carving tools, Gao Yu's difficulty in refining the dragon horn flying sword was a little less. Gao Yu himself was an expert in refining tools, and when Yang Chen was refining the flood dragon skeleton flying sword, she witnessed the process of the refining with her own eyes, which helped a lot. Refining the dragon horn flying sword was now a matter of time. After hundreds of years of spirit power washing and spiritual awareness penetration among the 2 dragon horns of water and fire, the aura of Gao Yu was completely present, which made it more handy for her when controlling it. Yang Chen has confirmed the refining steps with her many times, and Gao Yu has also memorized it by heart. With the encouragement of Yang Chen and the other 3 women, Gao Yu finally started to work on the 2 dragon horns. The first step was to carve it with tools, and after becoming finely shaped, she then refined it with spirit power. Gao Yu already had a Yuning stage cultivation base, and it didn't seem too difficult to control the entire refining process. However, Gao Yu's time was still far beyond Yang Chen's. It took a full 10 years for the 2 flying swords to complete the embryonic stage. Next, Gao Yu needed to spend about 100 years again to refine the 2 dragon horn flying swords into her life source flying swords. At this point, the Yang Chen family's purpose in coming to the secret plane has been achieved and it was finally time to leave. But the thought of creating a sword embryo for Gao Yu, Xiaoyan woke up. It has completely swallowed the dragon bead and its body has grown a big circle again, with a length of tens of feet. However, when Yang Chen needed to use it, Xiaoyan would always be the size most suitable for Yang Chen's hand and would always be like the hilt of a flying sword. Both Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu's flying sword embryos were swallowed by Xiaoyan, completely eradicating all traces left by Yang Chen. The 2 women happily held the formed sword embryos, saving hundreds of years of time, and began to temper their life source magic weapons. Gao Yu's dragon horn flying sword was originally made by herself, so there was no such problem at all. Basically, after a period of tempering, the 2 flying swords could truly become Gao Yu's life source flying swords. Except for Yang Chen's not yet fully assembled, the family of 5's life source magic weapons have already been settled. Who wants this tortoise shell? Before leaving, Yang Chen looked at the huge tortoiseshell that formed the secret plane and suddenly asked. Yang Chen's tortoiseshell statement made all the women uncomfortable. Yang Chen had no choice but to change his tone. Who wants this super protection and attacking magic weapon? The huge shell of a tortoise has been refined into a secret plane, but after tens of thousands of years of spirit power nourishment, the secret plane has become too tough. As Yang Chen said, this was a super strong protection magic weapon, and the sword formation at the entrance was another attacking magic weapon, which was similar to Yang Chen's dome hull. Although everyone disliked the name tortoiseshell, no one would ignore such a magic weapon for protection. In the end, the secret plane belonged to Sun Qingxu, the youngest and most naughty. However, Sun Qingxu kept pouting her mouth and refused to call this a tortoiseshell. After thinking about it for a long time, she finally came up with a name that she was satisfied with. She called it Xuanwu's shield. Moreover, it was strictly required that Yang Chen and the other 3 women would no longer call it a tortoiseshell, but Xuanwu's shield. The Sun Qingxu, the youngest sister, everyone pampered her and no one wanted to disobey her, so they all agreed with a smile. Then Sun Qingxu began to collect the secret plane with the help of Yang Chen. For any fortress, the easiest way to capture the secret plane was from the inside. After cutting off the spirit power supply of the secret plane, it was basically a request. Even so, it took Sun Qingxu almost 2 months to fully collect the Xuanwu shield. After a simple refining, it became a protective magic weapon that could wrap the whole body after being released. Moreover, under Sun Qingxu's resolute request, Yang Chen also slightly modified the appearance of the Xuanwu shield. It no longer looked like a tortoiseshell, but became a very sleek translucent egg shape. Qingxu was temporarily satisfied. Leaving the secret plane, Yang Chen was still required to form the secret technique. Just when Yang Chen formed the first secret technique and was about to complete all the techniques, he suddenly thought of it and asked Sun Qingxu to open the newly acquired Xuanwu shield. Sun Qingxu didn't know why, but still followed Yang Chen's instructions, and everyone suddenly appeared in the canyon where they entered from the beginning. However, the gorge at this time was not as calm as before, but was full of murderous air. As soon as everyone's figures appeared, there was a head-to-head attack around them. Fortunately, Sun Qingxu had opened the Xuanwu shield and enveloped everyone. All of these attacks fell on the Xuanwu shield without causing any harm. Obviously, this was an attack from a formation. Boo. Zhanxian's eyes flashed, and a bitter murderous aura burst out from her. After Yang Chen married Zhanxian, it was the first time he saw Zhanxian's eyes like this. After a long time of cooperation in the secret plane formation, the girls have been in a tacit understanding. They summoned their flying sword magic weapons and then divided into 4 directions, staring at the surroundings. As for Yang Chen, he didn't worry about the girls. He reminded Sun Qingxu to open the Xuanwu shield. It could be seen that the abnormality was discovered long ago. Besides, there was the perverted golden bell, so there was no need to worry about Yang Chen's safety. Have you been tricked by someone before? Is that why you have become more careful? A strange woman's voice came from the outside, with a ridiculous teasing into everyone's ears. And Master Guan? Why are you here? Unexpectedly, it was Zhanxian who spoke. Listening to her tone, it seemed that the other party was actually a disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Why can't it be me? The middle-aged woman, known as Aunt Guan, finally appeared far away from the crowd. Next to the woman, there was an old woman who looked like an old granny, trembling with a cane. You brought Yugupo out. Zhanxian was shocked again. Aunt Guan, are you not afraid of the sect rules? When Zhanxian was talking with the other party, Yang Chen and the other 3 women did not interrupt. It sounds like this was something within the sect Green Jade Immortal Island, so they should at least let Zhanxian and the other party speak clearly. HMPH, as long as you don't tell, who will know? Guan Shishu sneered, looking at the faintly glowing Xuanwu shield. She could not help but sneer again. It seems that you have a lot of tortoise shells, but do you think this can stop the attack of Yugupo? Aunt Guan, are you crazy? Zhanxian shouted again, with a violent shock, as if she wanted to awaken this Aunt Guan. I'm crazy. Aunt Guan laughed wildly. Do you really think I'm crazy? Why? Zhanxian didn't say much and asked directly. Her face had returned to that frosty appearance again. Why? Hahaha. Aunt Guan laughed wildly. Why? Back then, I was the disciple with the best aptitude in the Green Jade Immortal Island, and almost all the resources were at my disposal. Everyone in the sects almost regarded me as a revitalizing hope of the sect, but then you actually appeared. When you were a disciple of the outer sect, everyone looked up to you with admiration and took care of you frequently. Those should belong to me. Why did you steal everything I deserve? At this point, Aunt Guan almost roared, and her original beautiful face looked a bit hideous. Why didn't Hu Qianyi kill you? Why do you still have your life? But today, I will personally take back everything that belongs to me and even take away everything that should belong to you. Everyone was staring at the roaring Aunt Guan. It was obvious that this lady couldn't even accept that other people's aptitude was better than hers. This kind of person, even if she cultivated to a high level, her realm would not be so good. No wonder she was still stuck in the late Yuaning and unable to reach the Daching stage, her character determined everything. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 490. The Dumb Ant Strength. Bao Yu, Gongsun Ling and Sun Qingxu were all looking at Ant Guan, but Zhanxian and Yang Chen's attention was always focused on the old ant, who seemed to be trembling and would fall down next. This old lady was definitely an expert and also a master in the Daching stage. Her aura was very restrained, almost not leaking out at all, at least in the eyes of Gao Yu, Gongsun Ling and Sun Qingxu. She was an old lady who may need to be taken care of by others. However, Zhanxian clearly knew the terror of Yagupo. This was a hidden Daching stage master of the sect. The reason why she was hidden was because she actually went crazy during her cultivation, which made her not very clear-minded and she couldn't speak. And Guan's name was Guan Zhenyao. Yagupo took care of her in many ways and loved her when she was normal. Therefore, after the accident happened to Yagupo, Guan Zhenyao took the initiative to take care of her. Although they were not close relatives, but thankful in return, this was even a good discussion in the Green Jade Immortal Island. Because the mute ant had gone so far as to burn her brain out, she cultivated more thoughtlessly than others. In her eyes, there was nothing but cultivation. Although she may not be able to continue to improve in the Great Realm, the strength she has accumulated during the Daching stage was considerable. Very few people knew about this in the Green Jade Immortal Island, and at the beginning, almost no one knew about it except Guan Zhenyao. Later, the sect master and several elders discovered this fact by accident, and Zhanxian, as the beloved disciple of the sect, naturally also learned some news about it. But Zhanxian was only clear that Yagupo only has the strength of a Daching stage master. As for how powerful she was, she has never seen it before and she doesn't know. But Yang Chen was different, his experience in battles and his spiritual awareness had clearly told him how terrifying the Yagupo not far in front of him was. When there was only cultivation and fighting left in the mind, the fighting power that erupts was definitely beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Otherwise, why do people say that certain crazy people are crazy? It's because of the horror of lunatics. This Yagupo was undoubtedly a master in this category. Now it seems that Zhanxian's Aunt Guan may know how to control this terrifying master. That's why she has the confidence to appear here. Not only that, he estimated that Guan Zhenyao had bought a compass from Li Liheng that could track Yang Chen, otherwise she would not be able to grasp Yang Chen's position so accurately and block Yang Chen's family. Yang Chen also knew that Li Liheng's imprint of spiritual awareness could reveal his whereabouts, but this was a double-edged sword. Obviously, it was more important to plot against the Greatest Heaven sect now than preserve his whereabouts. Perhaps one day when the Greatest Heaven sect was completely destroyed, it would be the time when he completely obliterated the imprint of Li Liheng's spiritual awareness. Guan Zhenyao not only tracked down where Yang Chen last disappeared, but still waited here for an unknown amount of time and arranged an attack and siege formation to ensure that Yang Chen's family could not escape. If coupled with the strength of the Yagupo, Yang Chen's family of 5 would obviously be eaten to death. Of course, this was Guan Zhenyao's thoughts, at least her current thoughts. Although Yang Chen and the others used an egg-shaped protective magic weapon to protect a few people, they couldn't escape the siege of her carefully arranged formation. Now she could tell her conditions first. Yang Chen, if you want the lives of your family of 5, take out what Hu Qianyi wants from you. Guan Zhenyao yelled at Zhanxian and turned to Yang Chen. It must be said that there were many smart people in this world. Yang Chen, just throwing out a pill recipe for the questioning inner heart pill, would definitely not make everyone think that this was what Hu Qianyi was pursuing. Although the pill recipe of the questioning inner heart pill was important enough, it was enough to explain Hu Qianyi's motives to some people. However, when Yang Chen sold the pill recipe, the Greatest Heaven sect didn't make a move this time. This shows what? Either the Greatest Heaven sect had already obtained the pill recipe, or Yang Chen and the Greatest Heaven sect had an agreement long ago. Either way, it shouldn't be a reason for Hu Qianyi to do something. So naturally, Yang Chen had something else to make Hu Qianyi tempted and even didn't hesitate to attack Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. Guan Zhenyao thought this was a good opportunity. If it was really the key to how Yang Chen became a 5th-rank alchemist, then with her personal knowledge in alchemy, if she wanted to replace Yang Chen as a 5th-rank alchemist after obtaining it, it should not be impossible. Therefore, the wise Guan Zhenyao chose a method that she thought was appropriate. On the one hand, to suppress and retaliate against Zhanxian, on the other hand, to get something from Yang Chen. With Yagupo, everything was not a problem, not to mention the formation siege that she had carefully prepared for decades. Today, even if Yang Chen's family put their wings on, they couldn't fly out of Guan Zhenyao's formation. Do you think, in this case, I will give it to you? Yang Chen was not as angry as Zhanxian. He was not a disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island, and he didn't have to think too much about the Green Jade Immortal Island. Either you give it to me, or I get it from your corpse, you can choose one yourself. Guan Zhenyao was really confident, and the tone of her speech was like taking charge of everything. Regardless of Zhenyao's carelessness, Yagupo was undoubtedly powerful, everyone else was not clear except her. If she didn't know this, how could she go back and take care of an old lady who had gone crazy with all her heart? She saw with her own eyes that Yagupo resisted two middle-daching stage masters, she didn't lose, and even injured the two masters. The sect only learned about the power of Yagupo after the two masters recovered from their injuries, and before that, Guan Zhenyao had fully obtained the trust of the sect to take care of Yagupo. Zhanxian, I'm sorry. Yang Chen did not answer Guan Zhenyao's question, but gave Zhanxian a regretful sentence. At the same time, his gaze stayed on Guan Zhenyao's dumb aunt, who had been doing nothing behind her. Of course Zhanxian also noticed Yang Chen's gaze and even understood what Yang Chen meant. The reason why he was sorry to her was obviously that he was going to ruin the peerless master of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Subconsciously, Zhanxian said to Yang Chen no. Although Yagupo was crazy, she was also a fighting force in the Green Jade Immortal Island. It was a pity that she would be ruined by Guan Zhenyao. It's too late to beg for mercy. Guan Zhenyao finally showed a smug smile on her face. She even heard Yang Chen's compromise from Yang Chen's words. It's not too late, it's just a little yin-yang nine heavens formation. Yang Chen mentioned the name of the formation that besieged everyone. How do you know? Guan Zhenyao's face was taken aback and then she showed an incredible expression. What are you going to do? In Yang Chen's hand, it was not known when an earth yellow flying sword appeared. It was his life source magic weapon, the living soil flying sword, which had never been used after he got it from the hand of the greatest heaven sect's elder Ming Guangguo. There was a trace of the aura of the living soil in the living soil flying sword. As long as it grows deeper and longer, the aura of the living soil would slowly swallow the surrounding materials and gradually enlarge itself. Although it would take thousands of years or even longer for this aura of the living soil to double, it did not hinder the flying sword's strength. Especially when this flying sword was still in the mouth of Xiaotian. Yang Chen grabbed Xiaotian, swung his sword in the direction of the core of the formation and slashed. If it was an ordinary flying sword, this kind of action would not have any effect. But now it's different, the living soil flying sword was held in the mouth by Xiaotian, that was a completely different effect. Swish swish, a few visible sword lights separated from the blade of the flying sword and flew towards the direction Yang Chen wanted to cut. Boom boom boom, a few booms sounded and the places hit by the sword light began to explode. How is it possible? Guan Zhenyao has been preparing for this day for a long time. She was good at alchemy and even studied the formation of the yin-yang nine heavens formation. When she personally tried it, let alone sword lights, she personally urged flying swords to stand in the formation and attack the core of the formation, it all didn't have any effect. Now Yang Chen has achieved something she couldn't even imagine with a few sword lights, how could she not exclaim? Surprise turned into astonishment. Guan Zhenyao was also a master in the late Yuning stage and it couldn't be said how rich her combat experience was. But she also knows that now was not the time to be surprised. When the core of the formation began to explode, Guan Zhenyao directly addressed the dumb ant behind her and said softly, "Auntie, they are bad guys. Kill them." The old lady who had been standing there trembling, brushed her head up. Suddenly, there was a violent flash of light in her eyes and the originally very rickety and thin body suddenly began to swell wildly, like a balloon that was blown up. From a dry and thin old lady to a fierce woman comparable to a strong man in an instant, it was just a blink of an eye. The long walking stick that was half taller than her before turned into a stick and the old lady didn't even make a sound. She lifted her crutches high and smashed it down at Yang Chen, who had already rushed to the front. Yagupo went crazy because of her cultivation, so many of her previous attack methods have been forgotten. The only thing she has not forgotten was that she picked up her dragon head crutch, which was originally her life source magic weapon, to hit people. This most direct and straightforward attack method was the most comfortable method to Yagupo. The formation core was exploded by Yang Chen and the formation naturally began to slowly lose its effect. Yang Chen's figure naturally had no obstacles anymore and he rushed directly to the front. Boom, the moment the dragon head cane and the living soil flying sword hit each other, it was as if a small nuclear bomb exploded in the surrounding canyon, the whole area exploded. Countless flying rocks and dust shrouded everyone's figure and there was no trace of them anymore. Snort, you want to bite more than you can chew. A little Yuning stage ancestor dared to clash with Yagupo head-on. Although she couldn't see what was happening and her spiritual awareness could not detect the situation around the dumb ant, Guan Zhenyao still expressed a happy laughter. But soon she remembered something and suddenly exclaimed, "Auntie, be careful, don't damage his cosmos bag." Obviously, Guan Zhenyao was afraid that after Yugupo destroyed Yang Chen's Cosmos bag, her arrangement would fail. She had seen the power of Yugupo attacks before and even Daching stage masters couldn't keep up. Yang Chen was nothing more than a newbie in the Yuning stage, at this time, he might have become fleshy meat. A low bell sound rang and Guan Zhenyao suddenly felt a shock in her mind and she became dizzy. The smoke and dust in front of them suddenly dissipated, revealing the figures of Yugupo and Yang Chen. How is it possible? Guan Zhenyao couldn't help exclaiming even when she was dizzy, seeing the scene in front of her. It was not known when a big golden bell appeared on Yang Chen's body, which completely enveloped his figure. Yugupo leading crutches hit the bell in front of Yang Chen, motionless. On the surface of the golden bell, there were still two illusory dragon shadows moving up and down, flying constantly. This scene was completely different from the situation in Guan Zhenyao's imagination of Yang Chen becoming a pool of fleshy meat, so she can't control herself not to exclaim. Yugupo didn't know how to hold back her hand. This crutch must have been smashed with all her strength, but she didn't even smash Yang Chen to death. It seemed that even Yang Chen's protective magic weapon had not been damaged. What kind of magic weapon could block the Daching stage ant's full blow? Guan Zhenyao's mind was a little more dizzy and she couldn't accept this fact at all. But the thing that shocked her was still behind. After Yang Chen's golden bell, it was his living soil flying sword. At this moment, the blade of the living soil flying sword cut right into the dragon head cane of the dumb ant, it has been cut into by almost half an inch. Not only that, as the two of them added their strength, the blade seemed to cut deeper and after a while, maybe it would cut off the crutches directly. This was the life source magic weapon of Yugupo, it was not known how many battles it has experienced and it has never been damaged. Now it was ruined like this, even if Yugupo's brain was not good, but the painful color on her face was not concealed the slightest. Even if she doesn't know the pain anymore, the damage of her life source magic weapon was closely related to her mind and it was also extremely painful at this time. Before Guan Zhenyao could react, Yang Chen and Yugupo's free hands had already blasted towards each other. With two loud bangs, the two fists hit each other's body at the same time. This time, even Yang Chen's golden bell did not block the fist of Yugupo. Yang Chen's figure flew back dozens of steps and fell directly into the arms of Gao Yu, who was following him. He still hadn't been able to stop, even Gao Yu couldn't help but step back a few steps before the vigorous force disappeared. Watching this scene, Guan Zhenyao's face showed a smile again. Yugupo fist was no worse than a magic weapon and even the magic weapon for body protection may not be able to block it. On this point, Yang Chen's golden bell was useless. But Guan Zhenyao's smile only appeared for a moment and immediately turned into a shocked expression. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.